been any kind of major nationwide crackdown on left-wing militants and extremists and those who are funding and facilitating and promoting this violence? When Democrats get in office, they're going to do that to us. The only difference is that we haven't committed any crimes. Doesn't matter to them. Right-wing extremist violence basically doesn't exist. Meanwhile, in the case of the left, you've got this actual conspiracy to commit violence all over the country, and there has not been any serious major crackdown.
My name's Matt Walsh. I host a radio morning program at 93.5 The Beach.
Teen pregnancy is a new problem. It's only recently that we decided that it is a problem.
Here you have the cases in Hollywood. Actresses willingly have sexual relationships with powerful men, and they do this for the sake of movie roles. And then years later, after getting what they want out of it, they claim that they were being assaulted the entire time.
Girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Recently, in the last 30 years or so, we decided that is when they're technically
were being assaulted the entire time.
Girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Recently, in the last 30 years or so, we decided that's way too young to start.
Just as a heads up, this gets said sometimes, but this is just not true. I think your optimal survival rate for pregnancy is like around, I think it's like 23, maybe 22. But the idea that, oh, well, you know, the human body is ready to have a kid at 14, 15, 16 as soon as they go through puberty. That's just not true in terms of survival. I think it's around like 20. I think it's around 23. There's never been a time period in human history where like 14-year-olds have been able to safely give birth.
A family.
A lot of people have harkened back to the revolutionary times. Well, our founding fathers had very specific goals in mind. It wasn't a generalized sense of outrage. And by the way, they were willing to back it up with guns and violent force.
And then you have instances of inappropriate language where a man is accused of hitting on women or making rude comments. And all of these also get lumped in and are stuffed under the kind of Me Too umbrella.
If you want extreme things to happen, you have to be willing to go to extremes. The civil rights movement, they had specific goals. They boycotted. The people that were oppressing them, they made them hurt. So I would say that it's time for extreme measures. I'm not advocating violence, but why are we limiting ourselves?
Until we reclaim sexual morality and sexual balance.
Everybody's saying fertility. I don't know what peak fertility in terms of chance of getting pregnant. First of all, I don't think anybody even measures anything like that. Like when your fertility starts to fall off, sure, but I don't know if I've ever seen anything saying you're peak fertile at 16, 17. My guess is it's like in huge stages of like you're really fertile between these ages or whatever. So everybody keeps like trying to actually in chat, but okay.
But why are we limiting ourselves?
Until we reclaim sexual morality and sexual boundaries, we will be stuck trying to condemn all bad sex on the grounds of consent.
Everyone keeps bringing up our founding fathers. They were willing to pick up guns and kill people for what they wanted.
Which expands the idea of consent so broadly as to render it meaningless.
I would see nothing wrong with a society where 17-year-old girls are getting married to 17 or 18-year-old guys that are not kids, they're men.
Okay, let's say we get all new people in November. Let's say November, all new people come in. It's going to be the same problem again unless you actually change the system.
Willing participation is consent. The only time when willing participation is not consent is when there is something that precludes the person from being able to actually willingly consent, or when their consent is coerced.
If society was different and that we stopped insisting that you're a kid until you're 25 and we just deal with the reality that at about 16 you're an adult who is mature and can make decisions.
And if you want to change the system, you have to go to extreme measures, and that's it.
17-year-old girls and 18-year-old girls that are still in high school or just getting into college, many of them want, biologically and metaphysically and with everything in their body, they want to settle down, they want to start a family, and that's always going to be that way no matter what you do.
Everyone needs to understand here that Republicans are not the answer. They are not, period. Do not vote for Republican. Please, I beg you, don't vote for Republican. What has a Republican done for you? Everyone says, well, at least they're not as bad as Democrats. Yes, they are. They're all bad.
Is there anything left to say about Matt Walsh that hasn't been reiterated 100 times over since he's become a major voice in conservative politics in the last 10-ish years? Transphobe, racist, homophobe, basically every phobe there is to signify that the top of his social hierarchy is straight, white, Christian, and preferably Catholic men. But despite all that, he's had a successful career at the Daily Wire, now boasting over 4 million YouTube subscribers. If people want to hear what he has to say, I have to believe there's something more to his message than a running list of all the kinds of people he doesn't like. So I watched his podcast for a week and I'm going to tell you what I learned. And if you appreciate the masochistic spectacle I put on for you with these videos, I've got a Patreon where you can see them a week early, and a merch store that will help you show people that you've seen them. You know I must need an expensive therapist for all this. Also, real quick, I started a new shorter series called English as a First Language, where rather than an extensive fact check, I focus on the way content creators will construct their narratives to convey subtle and not so subtle messages to their audiences. You can check out the first episode on Candace Owens after this video by going to my main channel. The plan is to upload one episode in between each longer video. Let me know what you think in the comments.
If you were to ask somebody to name a famous dystopian novel, they'd probably come up with something like Orwell's 1984 or Animal Farm.
We begin in Matt Walsh's man cave, I guess? I don't know. It's giving F-150 that's only ever carried air.
Or if they're younger, they'd say something, unfortunately, like The Hunger Games.
Something you'll notice is that Matt frequently laments the way the younger generations have different cultural touch points.
Students are bombarded with messages that tell them that domestic authoritarianism is the greatest threat. Many of them are sympathetic to left-wing messaging about the alleged rise of fascism in the United States.
Not alleged, but we'll get to that, and hopefully that statement doesn't dissuade you from listening to the rest of this. Matt's focus for today will be comparing the modern left to an old dystopian novel.
No school in the United States will assign it to you. You'll instantly be labeled a white supremacist by the editors of The Atlantic. And I'm talking about the book called The Camp of the Saints.
Camp of the Saints is about a group of French people awaiting the arrival of a large group of Indian migrants, which they see as an impending doom.
Contrary to what you're told, this book is not a white supremacist screed.
The main antagonist of the story is a guy only referred to as the up his parents so that he can call him foreign by association. And 3, by the same standard Matt uses here to imply that Muslims are incompatible.
Wait, fuck. I didn't hear the part he said about... Hold on, wait.
He takes a while to say things.
This is the shot that, more than any other image, I'm in the act of extolling the virtues of open borders and migration, getting used as a literal footstool by a Muslim, have far more suicidal empathy.
Suicidal empathy is one of those terms like virtue signaling that doesn't really mean anything when wielded by the right, except that you're wrong to care about things. Also, I'm going to be cutting the frequent gaps that...
Okay, I don't know how much he's watched or paid attention to these spaces. Suicidal empathy is a term where when you hear it, you're almost always talking to, if not a, I'm not trying to be exaggerating or whatever, if not a white nationalist, like some kind of crazy, retarded, far-right person. Suicidal empathy is what right-wingers say when they're saying that white, left-leaning, liberal people are so empathetic towards other cultures that they engage in a suicide program of mass migration that is going to lead to the destruction of the white people, basically. So their empathy, they're so empathetic towards other races of people that they're suicidal. So suicidal empathy. They particularly blame white liberal college-educated women for this. There's some poll that they would always post from a long time ago that is fucking retarded, but it's as in like white people are retarded sometimes in America. But the poll is like, how do you view your race versus other races? And everybody views their own favorably, except for like white people. It's like negative 20 points. And they're like, this is suicidal empathy, basically. Yeah.
Matt leaves between every third word because, by God, he takes a while to say things.
This is the shot that, more than any other image I've ever seen, encapsulates the ideology of modern leftism. This is an emasculated white guy, literally in the act of extolling the virtues of open borders and migration, getting used as a literal footstool by a Muslim bomb thrower whose parents came from Afghanistan.
So 1, not a literal footstool. If anything, he's unintentionally put his body between the bomb thrower and Lang. 2, this is a photo of 2 people who were born and raised in the United States. Matt needs to bring up his parents so that he can call him foreign by association. And 3, by the same standard Matt uses here to imply that Muslims are incompatible with the West, I could post the ADL's list of right-wing terrorism in the past year and say this justifies that white people are incompatible with Western civilization because they refuse to assimilate to a secular, multicultural society.
And according to Turning Point USA's reporters who were on the scene, the mob of angry white leftists openly called for Lang's murder before someone actually tried to kill him.
These were white leftists that were coming here to kill Jake Lang. When he ran away from the attempted bombing, the leftists then went to the other side to try and cut him off. They were doing everything in their power to kill him.
So now we have Matt saying they're emasculated footstools, and TPUSA saying that all the protesters were trying to kill Jake Lang. There's this thing in propaganda where your enemy needs to simultaneously be strong enough to negatively affect your life, and weak enough that you can feel superior to and defeat them. So from all of this, what is the conclusion that Matt comes to?
An overwhelming number of leftists, probably a majority at this point, want to see their political opponents get killed. And on top of that, they want to see the downfall of the United States. They want white people to be eliminated from the face of the earth. They want a true dystopia.
Citation needed.
But now, in addition to the left, Matt takes the opportunity to say that the media is against the United States as well.
Now, nothing illustrates this point more clearly than the response of the mainstream corporate press.
Now, since Matt goes through a bunch of headline tweets about this incident...
Wait, is that unfavorable study a bad one? I don't remember where all the polling data comes from, but no, I'm not... I'm not trying to imply that the... Why are you holding my fucking cat? Stop! When I said it was bad or stupid, what I'm saying is that, like, for some white people to have dumb things about self-hating or whatever, that was cringe at some point. I don't know if this is all of white America, though, if it was like college students that were surveyed, but sometimes the weird, like, self-flagellating of liberals or progressives about, like, well, white people are evil is cringe as fuck. That's what I was saying.
To conclude that these outlets have sided with Islamic fundamentalism against the United States, let's look at what they've said both in the actual articles these tweets link to, as well as the tweets they posted afterwards.
Quote, breaking, a device ignited outside Zohran Mamdani's mayoral residence yesterday during an anti-Islam protest and counter-protest was confirmed to be an improvised explosive.
So this tweet was posted on the 8th, about 24 hours after the attack and prior to the full release of the attacker's motives by the police. If you read the article, which Matt does not in this video, you can see that's why they don't specify the motive, but do include Mayor Mamdani's condemnation of Lang's protest for being obviously racist, while at the same time condemning the violence even more strongly.
Of course, the goal of that headline is to make you think that the anti-Islam protesters placed the explosive device outside the home of the Muslim mayor.
Sean made this argument, right? AJW. He must have gotten this from Matt Walsh. I don't think I would have read that tweet. It's hard to know, obviously, because it's hindsight. I don't think I read, when I saw the Mamdani tweet and you pointed it out, it didn't look to me like Mamdani was implying that the explosion came from like the racist protesters. I feel like he would have just said that, but I don't know truly how right-wingers read stuff. They're fucked, dude. I don't know. It's hard to say sometimes, because sometimes they'll come away with readings of things that, like, I don't know if it's good faith or not. I can't tell, actually. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's hard to say. That was a huge talking point on right-wing Twitter. It might have been. I don't know. I didn't see it, I guess. But okay, so I guess either Walsh started it or was part of this. So I mean, all their messaging is the fucking same anyway. So.
It's also why in the following days, they included the motive in the headline that they posted several times.
The headline is vague on purpose to avoid describing what happened. They want readers to believe a lie.
These outlets didn't include a motive in their initial reporting because they needed to confirm it first.
NBC's New York affiliate did the same thing. They published multiple arrests made after suspicious devices found outside Gracie Mansion.
Same thing. It only took them a day.
Meanwhile, TMZ went with the following headline, which was also inaccurate and wildly misleading.
I'm sorry, is he telling his audience TMZ has a liberal bias?
And there was this egregious article from The Guardian. They plastered Jake Lang's photo at the top of the story, implying that it's a story about him.
Here's The Guardian.
I also hate this thing because Sean did this too. They always do this, where all of the media decided to lie about something. They've all got some narrative they're all lying about. Okay, but then why did they correct it the next day? And then they always go, well, it was because good people pushed back. They say the same shit when it comes to like election fraud. Like, how is it that 2020 was rigged when Trump was president, but then 2024 wasn't rigged when Trump wasn't president? And it's like, too big to rig. What? There's always like the narrative never has to make sense because there's always like a new fact. It's like they're in real time. We're living through a Hideo Kojima video game, or we're living through a Christopher Nolan fucking movie where it's the exact opposite of what you might expect to happen, every single time, right? Like yesterday, Darius showed up to kill me, and he's 6'4" and he weighs 300 pounds. It's like, oh my God, did he beat the shit out of you? No. Why not? Well, when he came to my house, he actually revealed that the only reason he was coming was to protect me from a bigger, badder guy who was going to come and kill us. It's like, oh, did that guy show up to kill you? No, because that guy was so big and bad, the cops arrested him or something. It's like, oh, so he's in jail now then, right? No, he was so big and bad, and the cops arrested him because he was so big and bad. He actually fought and killed all the cops, and then he came back to my house like, oh, then did he fight Darius? Like, well, no, because it's like, there's no through line to anything on any of the conspiracies or any of the plots ever. There's never a through line on anything, and everything can always twist to go the exact opposite direction as soon as a new fact comes about. You can't make any predictions based on the stuff that's given to you. You can never say what's coming next, Fuck.
Covering their court appearance a week later. Matt basically repeats himself for his explanation of each tweet, so we're just going to put a pin in that and save it for later.
But that'd be a very inconvenient headline, so they bury the facts in word salad. They want to avoid writing the truth, which is that the Muslim terrorist made Jake Lang's point for him. He was saying these people are not compatible with Western civilization, they're violent, and they throw a bomb at him. So they describe Jake Lang as a right-wing nuts.
Jake Lang is politely referred to as a right-wing provocateur.
And which is pretty remarkable under the circumstances. These terrorists tried to murder Jake Lang solely because of his political and religious beliefs.
But I'll call him a belligerent asshole who was arrested just 1 month prior to this protest for felony destruction of property.
But according to the New York Post, the terrorists are just ISIS.
I always like also, so this guy 100% is a race realist, the furthest right. If Matt Walsh was like, I can't believe you're describing him as right-wing, they probably is a fucking neo-Nazi. They always do this. They do this with Tommy Robinson too. It's like, yeah, they say that he's far right, but his views are really moderate. Constantine from Trigonometry does this, where he's like, well, Tommy Robinson's views on immigration, they're to the left of Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, some of the things that they've said. And it's like, this is such a retarded fucking point.
Loving teens whose parents seized the American dream.
That was commissioned by a veterans organization.
But the guy they attempted to blow up live on camera, well, he's a nut.
And now Matt is tacitly defending him by promoting his message here as justified. A message Lang chose to send by bringing a goat along and calling it Mamdani's second wife.
Like, objectively. They don't even need to, it's not even editorializing, they're claiming. It's just an objective description.
What Matt Walsh is really criticizing here is that all of these news outlets didn't immediately jump on this being a bunch of Muslim terrorists. And of course, being immigrants from a foreign nation, Matt accuses them of committing fraud.
That's not even getting into how exactly these people came from Afghanistan, one of the poorest countries on the planet, and now own a...
What does that even mean? You don't think there are people from poor countries? You don't think there's any rich people in any poor country? Or the fact that we also worked with a lot of people in Afghanistan or Syria or across the Middle East, that we gave them visas. And fucking Karantos was a computer science guy studying in fucking Indonesia or whatever, who's from Somalia.
A multi-million-dollar home in an exclusive neighborhood.
So what Matt is doing here is called jacking off. Not to be confused with JQing. That's a different thing. Matt is just asking questions, but he could easily look this stuff up himself. Instead, he wants to lead his audience to speculate based on the bias they already have against these people. Because if he actually did the research to inform his audience, they would know that these questions all have very easy answers.
Someone should explain how exactly they pulled that off. Do they own any Leering centers in Pennsylvania?
Brother, this guy
Leering
stinks.
centers.
I unfortunately have to go to the Daily Mail for this. All of their success is legitimate. I'm always sort of amused by right-wingers who think that immigrants can find success in the United States while simultaneously extolling the wealth and opportunity available in the United States. It's kind of revealing about who they think is actually capable of success.
And how did they manage to amass this extraordinary wealth while raising a domestic terrorist? How is it possible they weren't aware of what he was doing and what he believed?
Of course, that's another leading question meant to evoke suspicion, but let's actually track the logic here. They have money, resources, and time, and the best they could pull off was 2 amateur bombs whose components were immediately traced back to the builders.
How is it possible they don't share those beliefs?
Okay, real quick for any parents out there. How many of you actually know what your teenagers are doing day to day? Especially
Too much, unfortunately.
the ones who are almost or over 18 already.
And more broadly, there's the most important question of all. Why is it in our interest to import Afghans into this country?
I hate when
Jesus Christ.
people use the word import to describe immigration as though people are some
They have to use import because it's an intentional process by the Jews in order to bring in enemies to destroy the white race, by the way.
kind of product. You cannot simultaneously believe that America is the most popular country in the world that everyone wants to come to, and that the only way people would be getting in is because they are being intentionally brought in to
That's where you're wrong. They can believe that. And they do.
dilute the white race.
No one's ever presented an actual argument for this.
About 12 years ago, John Oliver did an episode on translators for the American military facing severe red tape on the path to emigrating to the United States.
Vegetables. Accurate translation can be the difference between life and death. And over the last decade, good local interpreters in Afghanistan and Iraq have saved countless American lives. Ask any veteran, and they will tell you that translators risked their own lives working for us. And because they did that, they are permanent targets for insurgents.
Did we ever hold a vote on that?
Actually, yes. Immigration laws are set by Congress, so technically we vote on this every 2 years.
Have we ever run a cost-benefit analysis?
Also, yes. There are a lot of studies available to Matt and all of you that in no uncertain terms say that immigration to the United States is beneficial. Even if you disagree with the conclusions, you can plainly see that this rhetorical jacking off is intended to play off your existing bias against immigration, which, if you're looking for a trustworthy news source, should be a pretty big red flag.
Has anyone who supports this ever presented any argument in favor of it? Well, of course not. And these are questions we should have asked before we allowed the parents of both of these terrorists.
I love it when people are like, shouldn't we have done, and then says the most obvious thing ever. Like, maybe we should have. True, that's a really good point. You should check and see if that was already done, maybe. It's such an obvious thing, right?
Imar Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi to become naturalized citizens.
So what Matt is saying here is that these people should have been screened for whether or not children they did not have yet would eventually become jihadis in the future because they were radicalized on the internet.
These are the kinds of questions we should have asked before allowing the Muslim population in the United States to double over the past 20 years.
So what Matt just said was the Muslim
I can't believe this works on conservative. Like, what is your life like that, like, you're scared of Muslims right now in the U.S.? Like, of all the things, like, that you've been fear-mongered about, really? Muslims are the thing right now? Really? Jesus. Do you get anything for killing the chair? Is there a reason to kill the throne? Does anything happen to him?
population, not the Muslim immigrant population. Maybe that was unintentional sloppiness on his part, but just so we're clear, the way he described it would imply that we should be controlling how many kids they have. The population didn't double just because people were immigrating.
Now we're finding out that actually we didn't vet any of these people. We didn't ensure that they were loyal to the United States.
This is also the dumbest fucking thing in the universe. Like, nobody, who gets into the United States with no vetting, especially from Afghanistan? Seriously? Like, you gotta admit that we got really fucking lucky for however many hundreds of thousands of these people that we've taken in between all of our Middle Eastern stuff, and only like 2 of them, I think, have done any kind of, attacks against other Americans, and some with the children of them. Like, that's got to be crazy. We vetted nobody, and that was the number that we wound up with? You would think there would have been like hundreds of these people doing terrorist attacks and shit. Not to mention that the people that did the worst terrorist attacks on 9/11 were here by visa. It's not like they illegally immigrated. I'm pretty sure these guys had visas, or I don't know if they had citizenships, but I'm pretty sure they had visas when they came in for practice and training, all this bullshit. But
are compatible with our civilization.
Again, John Oliver did.
Because Soros, like a shocking number of interpreters, has applied for a visa but is stuck in bureaucratic limbo. Congress passed bills in 2008 and 2009 providing thousands of special immigrant visas for local nationals who worked with the US military. But despite huge demand, very few were issued.
Immigration laws are extremely strict, and the result is a backlog that extends upwards of 10 years for some people waiting for their approval to both enter the United States legally and to be approved for citizenship, which in part is one of the drivers for illegal immigration that we need to reform. If America is a nation of immigrants, we should be more than welcoming to the ones that provide essential help before they even get here.
And maybe that's because, as we're finding out the hard way, most of them aren't. And now it may be too late to do anything about it.
Matt is telling you to be afraid of a vague foreign threat from people who are completely indistinguishable from ordinary people, to the extent that you would support giving extreme and unrestrained powers to the government. And to top it all off, he adds a video of black crime and foreigners existing in Canada as a flourish to let you know that they are taking over.
You can easily detect several signs that Toronto is no longer a Western city.
True.
It has become the third world.
Third world in this case means being in a place where you can see other people. And of course, this tirade wouldn't be complete without bringing it back to 2020 and Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah.
Okay, so all these progressive white people in this neighborhood, which is near the site of George Floyd's overdose.
George Floyd did not die of an overdose. He was asphyxiated by a police officer who was found guilty in a court of law.
The problem is that there are a whole bunch of radicalized foreigners in this country who hate us.
Like, I
Really?
knew I was going to get some racism, so I prepared myself for that. I wasn't expecting a fire hose to the face.
And they have the full...
Keep in mind also that for every single thing here that Matt Walsh is saying, these are not things that are being presented to the audience. And it's like, damn, that's some good shit to consider. Like, holy fuck, there's a lot of stuff here to think about. These are things that they've heard over and 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 over again from so many other conservative commentators.
support of self-loathing Americans who wouldn't seem remotely out of place in the camp of the saints.
To be clear, people who were not involved with the protesters showed up, and Matt is taking this and reframing it to say that it was their intention all along, by using TPUSA as a source, and then uses conjecture to ascribe it to most leftists. And he ties it all up by comparing it to an explicitly racist book to say things have gotten worse than the dystopia of the 70s. This segment on the racial impurity of the United States is brought to you by ExpressVPN. So what's the next story after all that? Lindsey Graham supports Israel more than he supports the United States.
You know, whatever you think about the war in Iran, we should all be able to agree that the effeminate, closeted neocon Senator Lindsey Graham should shut the hell up.
Also, he's gay. How original.
I mean, he's practically orgasmic with glee over this whole thing. I don't understand why Trump is not telling this guy to shut up. I mean, Lindsey Graham...
Matt Walsh feels so hateful to me, much more than other conservatives. Matt Walsh is crazy, yes. Probably one of the worst, I would say.
is positioning himself as a greater authority than Trump.
More than staking out any kind of position for himself about the
Putting himself above God Emperor Trump? What?
war itself, Matt just takes this as an opportunity to yell at Lindsey.
Just a horrible person. He's a psychopath. He's awful. What has he ever done? What is Lindsey Graham? Let me ask you this, Lindsey. What have you ever done for the people of your state? What have you ever done for them?
Now this I can agree with, the same way I'd agree with someone if they said the sky was blue.
He's out of line, but he's right.
After that, Jennifer Newsom, California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife, apparently made money working at her nonprofit, which was founded to help icky girls with cooties.
Her company is called Girls Club, LLC. I mean, the main reason I'm reading this story is
Girls Club? Well, so what, we're not allowed to have boys clubs now?
because of the term first partner of California. As to the stuff about the charity, yeah, obviously it's a scam.
The financials for Jennifer Newsom's nonprofit are public record, so it's not like this was some hidden secret that needed to be uncovered.
Even there, it's like if you're going to donate your money to Gavin Newsom's wife's nonprofit,
You deserve
then you
to
deserve
get
to
scammed.
get scammed. Like, part of me is-
Absolutely. Buy Trump coin, by the way.
Like, I hope she steals all of it because you just deserve to be scammed.
Trump
You
coin.
deserve to be scammed out of every dollar you own.
Trump coin, by the way.
If that's what you're getting. If
Trump
that's how you're
coin.
going to spend your...
Has Matt Walsh made, link me, find his Twitter. Certainly he's made statements about Trump coin not being great, right? I feel like even the conservatives know that Trump coin was a bad look.
Your money.
Let's look at this Snopes article to see what the actual facts are. For the last 10 years, her salary was about $150,000, and the nonprofit would pay her production company for content.
It's a nonprofit that deals with gender stereotypes. It's like,
Now, maybe her nonprofit shouldn't be paying her own production company, but the way they describe it would make it seem like she's embezzling the entire thing for herself, and nothing was actually produced.
I think I hate the term partner referring to a spouse more than I hate any other woke term. I hate it more than I hate, like, people with uteruses or whatever, any birthing person.
This is the maddest I've ever
okay, bro?
been.
But it's also a useful term. If I'm talking to you and you use the word partner instead of wife,
For all intents, given the amount of money that Gavin Newsom is worth, the kind of fraud that they are talking about here would not be worth it and would be needlessly difficult to pull off relative to the amount that they would earn.
I immediately know everything about you. I can judge your entire life. They say don't judge a book by its cover. I don't even need the cover.
And that's before you get to whether or not the nonprofit's work was worth anything in and of itself.
I know you're an insufferable, emasculated, pretentious dork. I know you're the biggest loser on the planet. It's a word you use for somebody you're in business with.
This is just another opportunity for Matt to cry foul based on people's preconceived notions of what nonprofits are for. And what evidence he can cite is based on what reputation the people who wrote the article have rather than the actual substance of the reporting itself.
And I was kind of blindsided because up to that moment, it seemed like kind of a normal guy. And then he just drops partner on me.
After that fun trip to California, and don't worry, we'll be going back later, David French wrote an op-ed about James Tallarico, and Matt has some words for Tallarico, Christian to Christian.
Here's a guy who definitely calls his wife partner, I would assume. This is David French reaching his final form. This is him becoming the final form that he will be.
Okay, this is all the proof I need to know that Matt doesn't write his own scripts because he does not get the reference here.
Where he defends and praises the liberal heretic James Tallarico.
Tallarico's a heretic? Yeah, I think he is. I don't like what he's saying.
It's just, you never hear a kind person calling someone a heretic, do you?
But he's a heretic. He's a blasphemer. He supports abortion up to.
This is the same thing you say about like the fucking like the Houthi dude or whatever, where it's like, you know, this kid's just a kid. He's not a Houthi. The guy that Hassan interviewed or whatever. And it's like he's just, you know, trying to do what's best for Yemen, and he sees the other people attacking his country, and you know he's got strong feelings about it, and that's it. And then you check his Twitter, and it's like a guy impaled on a spike, and you're like. I mean, okay. Usually not like the good guys, but okay, maybe.
Birth, he supports child castration, transgenderism, everything down the list.
It always comes back to trans people.
He claims that the Bible agrees with him. He says that Jesus was a radical feminist. On and on. He's a heretic.
I also really love... Can you be a heretic from a non-Catholic church? Like... I guess you must be able to be, right? Because I feel like heretic means something for Catholicism because we'll fucking excommunicate you. But like, can you be like a Lutheran heretic? I mean, I guess you could, right? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Come on, baby, give me some heresy.
I want to point to this moment here where Matt reads an excerpt from the op-ed David French wrote about Tallarico.
Tallarico isn't just making arguments. He's giving people hope. And I think I know why. And then he goes on to say that the primary American divide is between decent and indecent.
Do you see what just happened there? You might have missed it if you weren't paying attention, or you have this video up in the background to listen while you do something else, in which case... I work really hard on these visuals, you know? There's an ellipsis at the end of one of these paragraphs, representing a section that Matt has omitted from what he's reading. Out of curiosity, I looked for the article so that I can figure out what that section is. It says, put simply, if the primary American divide is between right and left, then Tallarico isn't that interesting. There's a long history of progressive religious activism in the United States, just as there is a long history of conservative religious activism. White evangelicals might be overwhelmingly Republican, but American Christians are remarkably diverse politically, and we've been arguing with one another for a long time. Matt, rather than contending with the points the article makes about Christianity, chooses to simply hide them from his audience.
That's based.
And if that doesn't tell you something, he uses an ellipsis to cut out another section earlier in the article in order to skip this passage as well. For example, in an interview with my colleague Ezra Klein, Tallarico criticized the evangelicals' focus on abortion and homosexuality in politics. It is remarkable to me, Tallarico said, that you have an entire political movement using Christianity to prioritize two issues that Jesus never talked about. And just because I like the article and Tallarico, I'm going to read one more section. If you were to crack open scripture today and start reading, one of the first things you should notice is that the Bible contains remarkably few political mandates. You can read it from cover to cover and not know the definitive biblical tax rate, welfare program, or foreign policy. But the next thing you'll notice is that there's an immense amount of guidance describing how...
Which is also extra funny because one of the big criticisms that Christians will have or other people will have towards Muslims is that, well, the problem is you can't separate the Islamic faith from government because in Islam, they dictate a form of government and it's more intertwined with the state. But Christians are so fucking horny in the United States to make Christianity or whatever the fuck like so much part of the U.S. and have like a fucking state religion and everything but name, or sometimes even in name, if you're Nick Fuentes.
How Christians should behave. Indeed, in the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul says that the fruit of the Spirit is a set of virtues: love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Anyway, now Matt is going to tell you why Tallarico is a demon, and David French is basically a leftist at this point, so you should ignore him.
Republicans aren't decent. They follow Trump. Trump is bad. Democrats are the decent ones. Never mind that it's wrong. It's just boring. There is zero difference between the articles they're writing about Trump in 2026 and the ones they wrote in 2016. It's the same thing.
No, the articles they're writing now are about how he's worse.
And they could say, well, yeah, I still object to Trump. Yeah, I get it. Like we know, you've told us. We think it's dumb.
So what is the actual criticism here of the points being made about Christianity being about love and tolerance and whatnot?
The only change that you're seeing with these guys is that they are becoming more and more overtly liberal. I mean, Bill Kristol is just a full-on leftist at this point. The only move is just to become full-on dyed-in-the-wool leftist Democrats, and that's what they're doing. But as to the article itself, I mean, it's absolute nonsense. David knows that.
In the industry, we call this an Asmongold defense.
This is an established fact. Everybody knows this.
Instead of making a firm argument, Matt will just tell you that Tallarico supports killing babies over
Claiming that a radically pro-abortion heretic
and over
who uses the Bible to push the murder of babies.
and over.
Yeah, he supports killing babies and says God is okay with it, but he's a decent guy.
And over.
How could it be advocating for baby murder and heresy in a decent way? What does that mean? What do you think decent means?
And over.
It is not possible to decently push for the murder of babies. It is not possible to decently preach heresy
I need your book to... Oh, hold on. You're a heretic.
and blasphemy.
And over again.
It's not possible to decently blaspheme God by saying he's non-binary.
God isn't human. Why would male or female even apply?
It's not possible to decently
God the Father, excuse me.
advocate for the castration and mutilation of children. He believes in dismembering infants.
I know that babies taste best.
But then another guy advocates against it, advocates for protecting babies, and does it in an angry way. Well, the first guy is decent, and the second guy is indecent.
Also, not that I agree with the premise, but think about what Matt is saying and how it can be easily flipped around for gay and trans kids Matt will simultaneously attack, claiming to be the decent one, against someone attacking him angrily.
But somehow the baby killers and the child mutilators are on the decent side? What the hell do you think it means? What is decent about James Tallarico? Everything he says is horrifying. He says the most horrifying things. He's advocating for genocidal violence against the innocent, against children, against the unborn. He's advocating for mass murder of babies. What are you talking about? What's decent about it? Even if it did mean that, I don't think the side that pretty much exclusively advocates for, cheers, and commits political violence would qualify as polite.
January 6th, January 6th. No one wants you thinking about January 6th.
Okay, do you know what decent means? It means conforming to respectable and moral behavior. That is what decent means. A decent person conforms to respectable and moral behavior. It's total nonsense, but David knows that. And so,
And lastly, Matt covers an extremely important topic, a TikTok about how men park.
We're not just looking for a parking spot. We're running projections. Distance to entry, cart return proximity, door ding exposure, exit flow, all of that.
yeah, see, this is actually incorrect. And I have to say this is wrong. It's precisely the opposite of reality. The masculine approach to parking is to not overthink it, okay? It's like strategizing, making a big deal out of it. That's not the manly approach. That's what women do.
Day one done, and I need to take a
True.
shower. Maybe donate some money to an anti-deportation legal fund.
And that's the first thing. I mean, my God, how boring.
If you were famous for something else, what would you be famous for?
Something else. I'm not famous in the first place. That's the first problem. What about you?
If you could add anyone to Mount Rushmore, this is a very fun question, who would it be and why?
I would add
Actually,
Billy
see.
Mays. He just had a great beard, and I'm told that I have a similar beard to Billy Mays.
If you could have someone like a personal assistant follow you around all the time, what would you have them do?
Not anything in particular, just to have them obey me every second of the day. That's what I feel like I need emotionally.
What was your favorite toy/hobby growing up? I don't know why it's a slash.
We were not allowed to play with toys
Oh.
when I was a child. We were told that it's demonic to have toys.
If you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be?
Definitely nowhere outside the United States. Probably somewhere empty and alone, like North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Yeah, just out, flat, empty.
Yeah.
I find the concept of a last meal to be so strange.
Yeah.
Like my last meal I would be in tears, sobbing,
Really?
and terrified. You're about to die in 12 hours.
Yeah, but it's the last thing you're going to eat. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Probably my dad would always say to me, Matt, stop doing that.
Yeah.
So that's just a good piece of advice in general. Stop doing
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
That thing that you're doing, stop.
Why would you be nervous to meet a celebrity? It's
She's
a
not
person.
really a celebrity, so I say, yeah, I guess she's not a celebrity.
Right.
Exactly.
A celebrity means a lot of people are aware of your existence.
Yeah.
Why should I be nervous to meet you in that case?
Are celebrities one of your pet peeves?
What fictional character do you wish you could meet?
Oh gosh, you go first because I feel like I have an answer.
I don't have an answer.
You,
I
come
don't
on.
care about this.
What? Come on.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man? Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
I hate you for saying that. I hate you.
Does it have meat?
Epic.
Yes.
Does it have bread?
Yes.
Socratic method. I just proved it was a sandwich.
No, you didn't. You didn't because you didn't start with asking me, do all sandwiches have just meat and bread?
All right.
Maybe you brush up on your Socrates,
okay.
buddy.
If you had to teach something.
No.
What is
Day
it?
2, and oh my
I don't know, but it's not a sandwich.
God, we're still talking about the media not covering Islamic terrorism enough.
Desperately been attempting to confuse the public into believing this lie. They know that 2 Muslim terrorists tried to murder right-wing activist Jake Lang. Now, that CNN article was written by 2 authors, both of them women.
Wow.
She uses they-them pronouns.
Wow.
The other author is a
Unbelievable.
Spanish-speaking Colombian immigrant to the United States who holds an undergraduate journalism degree. If you pay enough attention, you'll find that journalists are paid to obscure relevant information to the extent that the information might lead you to draw some unapproved conclusions.
Moving on to the actual story being covered today, air travel. At time of recording and editing, the Department of Homeland Security is still shut down, causing delays. What's Matt's take? The problem is black people and immigrants.
And the TSA along is so lined that it snakes into the parking garage. Now, the reason that all this is happening, according to NBC News, is that Democrats are refusing to fund DHS. See, Democrats are upset that 2 left-wing agitators were killed while assaulting and interfering with federal law enforcement officers.
So to briefly sidetrack, he is incorrect. They were not agitators. ICE had no grounds to shoot either of them.
That's an incomplete analysis. So why isn't every single airport in every city in the U.S. experiencing a similar meltdown?
Because different airports experience different levels of congestion at different times of day and at different times of year.
TSA agents in the South are calling in sick in response to the funding lap. Now, they know that when the DHS is funded, they will receive back pay, but they don't care. They're going to take a vacation or work a side hustle on false pretenses.
They can't wait until they get the back pay because the back pay isn't going to be helpful.
Wait, what did it? No, we did not just say that. Hold on.
Times of day and at different times of year.
TSA agents in the South are calling in sick in response to the funding lap. Now, they know that when the DHS is funded, they will receive back pay, but they don't care. They're going to take a vacation or work a side hustle on false pretenses.
They can't wait until they get the back pay because the back pay isn't going to be helpful when they're on the street. At which point Matt will assume they're homeless because of personal decisions or addiction, and not because Republicans couldn't pass a bill to fund DHS despite having both houses of Congress.
Because they see an opportunity to double dip, and for some unknown reason, which can't possibly have anything to do with systemic corruption or culture or...
Watch the way Matt weaves this so he doesn't directly say black people, but all of the indicators he uses will lead you to the conclusion that it is black people.
The vast majority of TSA agents who are committing this fraud happen to be located in 3 major urban centers in the southern United States.
What is he saying? I can't hear him over the loud whistling. My dog is really unhappy about the noise.
But no one at NBC News will ever investigate those questions, and we all know why. They're afraid of what they'll discover.
He likes to say we all know a lot. What do we all know? Is there some shared understanding of this that you can't say out loud?
No. We all know why we're here, and I believe we all know what needs to be done.
And we know that because not too long ago, we didn't indulge the laziness and the corruption of the worst among us.
You just said they were working side hustles like 30 seconds ago. Can you please give me some consistency? But now we get to the part where Matt compares present-day air travel to
Can you play the doo-doo-doo? Yeah.
I got you, bro. Don't worry. I got you.
Advertisements from the 60s to say that air travel was better when the passengers were all white. I mean, when the tickets were more expensive.
Hard to believe, but it's true. Travel by air and by train has become much slower than it was during the 1960s. Take a look at this Coke TWA ad from 1967, which passengers are all smiling as they receive hot meals. Tickets were more expensive than...
I love this idea of like, what did the past used to be like? You know what you used to be able to afford in the past? Well, let me introduce you to a little common sitcom called The Big Bang Theory. Penny lived in Manhattan, was a waitress, and she had her own massive 1-bedroom apartment. That's what life used to be like for the average American. And now look at where we're at.
They are now, but in return, the experience was 10 times more comfortable and civilized.
Because it is an advertisement. I'm sorry, does Matt think that Red Bull literally gives you wings?
Yes.
Does Matt really think that 9 out of 10 dentists think that one toothpaste brand is better than the others?
The issue isn't simply that customers are paying less for worse service. The main reason air travel is so unpleasant is that the low prices attract passengers like this.
But now we get some clips of people
What?
What the heck?
The fuck?
having freakouts in airports and paying no attention to the fact that all of them just happen to be black.
This is what the Rosa Parks mythology has become. It's gone from, it was racist to tell Rosa Parks to give up her seat for a white person to it's racist to tell any black person to take a seat ever for any reason.
Rosa
What the fuck?
Rosa Parks moment.
Okay.
What could be going on there?
And when the FAA awards massive airport contracts on the basis of racial equity, as they've been doing, then everything gets worse.
Once again, Matt will not provide sources on this. It's just another one of those things that you're supposed to nod along with based on vibes. But then he talks about people faking disability to get wheelchair accommodations at the airport for priority and who gets to board first. There's some truth to this one insofar as there are people who do take advantage. My criticism is the framing.
Now, the federal law was passed, as so many laws were passed, during a time when America was a high-trust society. It didn't occur to Congress or the airlines that passengers en masse would just lie about a disability in order to get a priority access to their seat.
Yes, that wonderful period in the 80s where everything was high trust and nobody was saying anything about people committing fraud against the government.
True.
In Chicago, they found a woman who holds the record. She used 80 names, 30 addresses, 15 telephone numbers to collect food stamps, Social Security, veterans benefits for 4 non-existent deceased veterans' husbands, as well as welfare. Her tax-free cash income alone has been running $150,000 a year.
We've imported tens of millions of people who have no regard for our culture, our way of life, or basic rules. And this is the result. And we all know that if airlines crack down on these wheelchair fraudsters, they'd be punishing an awful lot of non-white people, and that's just not allowed anymore.
This is all running cover for the inability of Republicans, and Trump specifically, to effectively run the government by shifting blame to minorities.
But Western airlines will see violence and decay like this, and they'll conclude that their problem is white people. It's not an exaggeration. That's what they truly believe. We've lost the high trust society that we once had, which is why we can't trust the media to tell the truth about Islamic terrorist attacks, why we can't trust the TSA to show up to work, why we can't trust passengers not to steal wheelchairs, and so on.
This must hit so hard if you're stupid. Thankfully, we're leaving the airports, and we're going into hospice.
All right, after Nick Shirley's extremely successful investigation into the infamous Leering centers in Minneapolis, some news outlets have now taken an interest in fraud stories. So CBS News has now stepped up to bat with an investigation into hospice fraud.
The right are swarming to find some other example of widespread fraud in a Democrat-held state. What have they found? Doesn't matter. What matters is how dramatically you can describe it.
Auditors estimate that LA County hospices overbilled Medicare by $105 million in a single year.
California's Medicaid program, Medi-Cal, has a budget of $222 billion, and the federal Medicare budget is $1.1 trillion. $105 million is a lot of money, but prior to even CBS's reporting, California was already investigating to the point that they had stopped approving licenses for hospice services.
CBS News analysis revealed that over 700 of the roughly 1,800 hospices in LA County trigger multiple red flags for fraud as defined by the state.
I guess it's only misinformation when they give benefit of the doubt to foreigners.
And we're only looking at the tip of the iceberg. The fraud's all over the place. We know about Minneapolis.
Of course.
There's mass unprecedented fraud taking place across our country.
Of course.
Which is true. Conservative estimates would say that the amount of Medicare and Medicaid fraud alone
Time to pull a number out of my ass.
Every year is like $70 or $80 billion.
Is that true?
Nationwide.
And when you dig deeper to see what the typical reasons are for overbilling, that is, you go to the website and check, you can find out what the usual reasons are. Fraud, errors, and abuse, not fraud by itself, is estimated at $60 billion, which is less than 10%. And if I'm reading the report correctly, a significant amount of that is attributed to insufficient documentation or justification for procedure, which is not indicative of fraud or abuse. And I would encourage all of you to check me on this by looking at the numbers yourself. It's entirely possible I'm screwing up something here.
That's not including insurance fraud outside of those programs. If you look at everything together, you're looking at, at least $100 billion. At least. Annually in fraud, but probably much more than that, because obviously that's the thing about fraud. There's no way to know exactly how much of it is happening.
Which conveniently allows for this kind of speculation.
It could be $1 trillion.
And the problem is that there still isn't any serious nationwide effort to crack down on it.
You really just want us to forget about Doge, huh? Miraculously, Matt somehow manages to point out the obvious.
The one thing about hospice is that in many cases it's in-home hospice care, and so in a vacuum, in and of itself, there's nothing unusual necessarily, I would think, about having a hospice office in an office building, but to have all of these, to have this sudden explosion of hospice care in this one area, and to have buildings where you've got dozens of hospice offices, and then you go and try to talk to them, and they're all out to lunch at the same time. Like so we all get an idea.
All out to lunch at the same time? At the same time? No, were they really? Holy Christ.
Of what's going on here.
What's going on here is that companies are aware journalists are going around asking questions that imply they are committing fraud, and they don't want to deal with that, which would be true whether they were committing fraud or not. But of course, who's to blame for all of this fraud? That's right.
Black people?
Black people and foreigners.
Yes.
I hate that I have to be the one to bring this up. I don't really hate it. I don't care. But with one exception, it appears that all the people in the video that we just played are foreigners.
Everything is black people and foreigners.
And actual arrests have been made, not many, but they've done some symbolic arrests over the last couple of years, so they can pretend that they're actually doing something about this problem. Yesterday, Juan Carlos Esparza, Susana Harut Yanyan, Karpis Srapyan, Mihran Panasyan, and then Petros Fikadzyan. Just good old-fashioned American names. The second that I heard this story and just randomly Googled the names of some recent arrests, I expected that it would just be a bunch of foreign names, and what do you know?
If you stub your toe in the morning, I bet that table was a foreigner. Accidentally burn your tongue on your coffee? I bet that coffee was black.
And that's the part of the story that the corporate media is not going to acknowledge or investigate.
And don't worry, when he blames foreigners, he goes the extra mile to also blame the countries that they came from.
Which, by the way, it's easy to conclude, well, they're behaving that way because they're in the third world and they're poor. But it's more accurate to say that they're in the third world and they're poor because they behave that way.
Oh, shit. Okay. Hell yeah. We're immediately jumping to the ethnic essentialist arguments as opposed to just saying that they're socioeconomic factors. I like it. I appreciate it. It's important that they do this, by the way. The reason why they have to is to show that if these people come from these shithole countries, they're always going to bring the bad behavior with them because it's part of their genetic identity, basically.
A culture of theft and fraud, and it means that they will never advance. They'll never prosper.
I'm finding that the only differences between Matt Walsh and Nick Fuentes are a beard and a reluctance to say that our problems are caused by Jews. The next story he decided to cover is that Grok apparently now says that America was not built on stolen land. This is an opportunity for Matt to call Native Americans savages.
You've been lied to so much. Lies, myths, exaggerations, Trail of Tears, smallpox blankets, all of that. America treated the Indians, for the most part, in a very decent and merciful way.
Skip over it?
Well,
those were two huge things, right?
Some of these were, the Trail of Tears is real.
The Indians is myths, exaggeration.
I had to call Native Americans savages.
You know, you've been lied to so much. Lies, myths, exaggerations, Trail of Tears, smallpox blankets, all of that.
The smallpox blankets is not true. It's a retarded fucking meme.
Is it? I learned about it in school, so I must have got fake news.
It is. It's fake news. It's retarded.
Oh.
Merciful way. Now, there were exceptions. Atrocities were committed on both sides. Sending Indians
both sides
reservations is now seen as some great moral crime. There was a famous debate, I think, in 1550 in Spain. And now you could say, if you're a moron, oh, well, it shouldn't have been up for debate. Of course, the Indians were humans. 500 years ago, the Spanish were way, way, way ahead of their time by even discussing something like that. You know, we're people, they're not, and we can take their stuff and kill them, and that's the way it is.
Real quick, what were your thoughts on Trump deciding that he wanted Greenland?
You are opposing the very essence of America. You're opposing America itself. To begin with, Europeans colonized and conquered the East Coast of what would become America from Maine to Georgia, and that's to say nothing of all the land that was claimed by France and other European powers. And so that's to begin with. And yes, there were people living.
Like, it's crazy to think people aren't listening to this as like, you know, kind of what does this guy think, or it's kind of entertaining. Like, this is like people are getting, this is their news. They think that this is reality. They're getting politics, they're getting history, you know, moral guidance. Like, you can't just say something we learned in school is BS without explanation. I'm not saying you're wrong, though. There's just no, I don't even think they had the theory. I don't even know if germ theory or whatever was a fucking thing at that point. I think that they, at some point, somebody gave blankets or supplies, or they left something for Native Americans, I think. But the idea that they were doing this with the understanding that they were going to give them smallpox from the blankets was just not.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a coordinated attack like we make it seem.
I don't
like.
even know if there was ever, if that even ever happened, that somebody got a blanket. Yeah, no. But people try to make it sound like they were planting smallpox blankets for natives to take to die of. Like, that's just not. That just never happened. There's no solid evidence of that. Yeah.
That is what I learned. Question: you're from the Midwest. Did you learn a lot about like the Underground Railroad and stuff?
Yeah.
Apparently, people in the South don't learn like a ton about it. Like, they do like a little bit, but like I've heard that they kind of like skip through that portion.
Well,
but we
what
were
do you want him to say? What do you want him to say?
Underground Railroad fucking places. I don't know.
In some of the areas that they colonized, and they got into fights with those people, and they kicked them out, and they conquered the land. So to now sound so scandalized by the very idea of it. This is what America is and has always been, and I'm proud of that. To me, I'm not ashamed of that.
After that, apparently a state legislator wanted to see if there were any studies about the benefits of shoplifting and retail theft.
Even if they were, it wouldn't matter. It's still illegal. It's against the law. It's a crime. But these are not impoverished people who are shoplifting and stealing in order to survive. That doesn't exist in America, like at all.
It's not that these circumstances don't exist. It's that people aren't able to differentiate it by sight, and ultimately it's worse for everyone if you actively try to enable things like shoplifting, because that attracts more shoplifting. It creates a spiral of antisocial people helping antisocial people.
So why do people shoplift? Well, they do it just for the sake of it. They do it because they think they can get away with it.
Well, my favorite thing about about Republicans, or I guess leftists too, is that they'll rightly call out like a retarded thing that somebody on the other side says, and then they just manage to say the most retarded fucking thing next. And it's just like, why, guys?
And this is what drives criminal behavior in our country in the modern age. Like, we've been talking about importing people from other parts of the world in particular, who this is just what they do. And it's just kind of an indifference. It's a instinct to commit crime if you can get away with it. Why is there so much violence in the inner city? Well, why do they kill and steal and everything else? Is it desperation? Is it necessity? No, it's just because. You know, the problem is that normal, law-abiding, functional humans look at the crime problem and they try to understand it from their perspective as a normal, functioning person.
I don't think Matt realizes his argument loops back around to defending shoplifting.
We know that we only do things if we think there's some positive reason to do them. Now, we might do the wrong thing sometimes, but if we do the wrong thing, it's because we have rationally decided that there's a benefit in doing the wrong thing, and so we're going to do the wrong thing. The guy with 50 arrests who's out on the subway platform.
Didn't he just say that the reason why people steal is because they think they won't get caught or something? What?
From looking for someone to push in front of a train. You could give him $10 million. You could give him $50 million. He'd be out on the subway platform tomorrow doing the exact same thing.
Wait, what? He just thinks it's purely, Jesus Christ. I feel like I haven't listened to a ton of Matt Walsh, and I haven't listened to a ton of Fuentes recently, but I feel like he's more of like a racial essentialist than most of the neo-Nazis I hear talk are. Jesus.
You could give him $10 million. You could give him $50 million. He'd be out on the subway platform tomorrow doing the exact same thing.
Unless you make him president. Then the world is his subway platform. And lastly, he decides to talk about Meghan Markle. I'm sure that given the way the media has treated Meghan in the past, Matt is going to be very empathetic.
Bit of downer, but It's been reported that Meghan Markle's deal with Netflix has been canceled. And I take no pleasure in it. I mean, I take a little pleasure in it, but I don't really care that much one way or another. She walked away from being actual royalty because that felt too stodgy and too old-fashioned for her.
She didn't walk away. Harry did. And good for him doing it too.
And now what is she? She's a failed podcaster.
She wasn't a royal person, right? It was just Harry.
Yes.
I don't know.
Technically, she became royal, but yeah.
But then didn't they... There was a reason why... was it just because everybody was racist as fuck about it? I don't remember. But okay.
I think that's what it seemed like, is everybody in the family was pretty fucking racist to her, and he just didn't like that. I don't know. I didn't watch their whole documentary.
She didn't walk
away from being actual royalty. I mean, I take a little pleasure in it, but I don't really care that much one way or another. She walked away from being actual royalty because that felt too stodgy and too old-fashioned for her.
She didn't walk away. Harry did. And good for him doing it too.
And now what is she? She's a failed podcaster. She's basically an unemployed Instagram model instead of royalty. It's amazing.
So
didn't she have like a decent actor career?
Yes.
She was in all the
did.
fucking Suits shit. Wasn't she in movies too, or what?
I don't know if she's in movies, but she...
was it just TV shows?
How is this guy making fun of her when he literally is just a YouTuber?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't get it, man. She was in like 4 seasons of Suits, I think.
Yeah.
And the only reason she left is because she went and got married to a fucking prince.
I don't know if she did anything else besides 7 seasons of Suits, by the way.
Oh, Jesus.
And she's married to a guy who was a prince. That's a failure? Like, what are we... Okay, Jesus.
God, there's just nothing behind the eyes with Matt. It's so boring and phoned in. It really shows a contempt for his audience that he thinks all he has to do is say, hey, did you know that all of your problems are caused by foreigners?
So,
So we thought we would play a little game of Was It Racist? With Laura Loomer's infamous curry tweet.
by the definition advanced by, the DEI industry, it certainly would count as racist. I wouldn't call it race. I think it's just kind of a dumb joke. To me, what racism means is that you hate people of another race and or you think they're inferior to you in some way, inherently because of their, immutable characteristics. The only
Even he doesn't escape that definition. What the fuck?
person who can answer whether it's racist is her.
Or he doesn't escape even that definition.
To ask her, and if she said no, then I'll have to take her word for it. She's the only one who can speak to her own, what's going on in her own mind and her own heart. Whatever racism you find in society now is individual. It's not systemic. These systems are not set up to disadvantage quote unquote people of color.
So when did we get to a point where it wasn't systemic and it was no longer a problem?
Well, I'm not sure you could point to one exact moment in time, but what we know for sure is that right now we are certainly in the moment where it's not systemic. So if you wanted to point to an exact moment, I mean, I guess the most obvious moment would be.
Is he at least going to say the Civil Rights Act, or is he going to say the ending of slavery?
The Civil Rights Act.
Okay.
So can you point to me an exact point of the system, an exact place in the system, a policy that is designed to deprive black Americans of rights?
After they implemented school desegregation. Oh, okay, well, we can't legally keep black people out of our neighborhoods or out of our schools, but what we can do is we can secede from our neighborhoods, basically gerrymandered. Like they would know where the white people were, and they would gerrymander the school district so that only white people would be a part of this.
Yeah, but you're going back to desegregation.
No, this is what they're doing now. Like this is up to today.
I don't think that there's any evidence that it's racist. I think in like an example you give, it's class, it's people wanting to avoid crime-ridden, impoverished areas. Here's another point that rarely comes up. It's pretty simple. You can move.
When you see stats that say like a black homeowner who's trying to get a mortgage, who has a higher credit score and higher income, gets a higher interest rate from the average bank than a white applicant. Overall, there have been so many studies that have replicated this. Systemically, what it does is it makes it easier for white people to move into these wealthier neighborhoods, harder for black people.
So for the sake of argument, let's say that those studies are totally legit. I would still go back to a class issue on that. And the reason is that banks care about the money. That's all they care about. These banks are not being run by people who are saying, we got to keep black people poor. I think the banks would have the same sort of skeptical, discriminatory attitude in that case as they would to someone who they're assuming is from the inner city, let's say. They are biased against people they don't think will pay their mortgage, basically.
Right, and so why don't they think a person with a black name will pay their mortgage?
If that is true, then they're making they're making class-based assumptions. This is a lower income person coming from a low income neighborhood, even if their current income is, the same as. Well, it's never a good sign when news anchors begin struggling to keep track of all the Islamic terror attacks that are occurring throughout the United States.
Day 3, and once again we begin on the media failing to tell you about how Islamic the Islamic terrorists are when they shout it's Muslim time and start morbing all over the place.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of post-9/11 foreign policy in this country, which doubled the Muslim population in the United States.
Is Matt going to talk about literally...
Wait, what was the doubling? From what to what? How many Muslims live here? Jesus.
Anything else?
Like the terrorists who attacked the synagogue, and like the terrorists who shot 18 people in Austin, and like the parents of the 2 New York City bombers who tried to kill Jake Lang, Mohammed Baylor Jallow was a naturalized citizen of the U.S.
I guess not. Today, Matt is covering another Islamic terrorist attack which occurred at Old Dominion University, committed by a guy named Mohammed Jallow, who supported ISIS. This one is special because where the Jake Lang attack allowed him to talk about Islamic terrorism and immigration, this one allows him to talk about Islamic terrorism and denaturalization. Really uncharted territory.
Like the terrorists who attacked the synagogue, and like the terrorists who shot 18 people in Austin, and like the parents of the 2 New York City bombers who tried to kill Jake Lang, Mohammed Baylor Jallow was a naturalized citizen of the...
Penny didn't live in Manhattan. The show is based in Pasadena, California. For Big Bang Theory, really? I just assumed they were in New York City. Did they really live in California? Well, fuck me, my bad. I'm sorry, not a true Big Bang fan.
U.S. Our government, without any obligation to do so, awarded...
Shut up!
Citizenship to all of these terrorists.
The parents of those 2 kids were not terrorists. You do not get to lump them in with everyone else here.
The problem is that Mohammed Jallow remained a naturalized citizen even after he pleaded guilty in 2017 to providing material support to ISIS. We didn't take away his citizenship even after he did the one thing that under our current law would obviously justify it.
Maybe it would be justified in a broader ideological sense, but speaking constitutionally, it is actually really important that for those who have it, citizenship cannot be revoked as a punishment.
You know, if somebody looks like a terrorist, if he's a lone Muslim with bad paperwork who keeps demanding that you sell him a rifle, or if he's a blue-haired man who...
What the fuck? What are these things he's saying?
Just that you call him a woman.
Statistically, queer people are much more likely to be victims of gun violence rather than the perpetrator. Matt is inserting that comment to imply that trans people are deranged.
Just like we saw in many, many other cases, common sense came to an abrupt end once the legal system got involved.
So Matt goes into the details of the investigation into Jallow and how the FBI seemingly encouraged him towards being a terrorist instead of deporting him.
And over the next few months, according to Jallow's attorneys, the FBI informants, quote, shaped and influenced his views using text messages, phone calls, and 2 in-person meetings.
Let's step back here and take a look at what's actually happening. Matt is simultaneously saying that this guy should have been denaturalized and deported, and that he was being entrapped by the FBI to commit an act of terrorism. For all intents, what this becomes is an argument for ginning up crimes to justify deportation.
Now, we have no way of knowing exactly what the FBI said during these text messages and phone calls because they're not public record. At the same time, it's no secret that the FBI, as a matter of policy, routinely uses informants to convince targets to engage in criminal activity. Additionally, the FBI has been known to protect terrorists who have a connection to its informants. Not many people know this because the government tried to hide it, but the father of the Pulse nightclub shooter was an FBI informant.
Okay, so one, what does Matt think of the Pulse nightclub shooting itself?
On Friday, Biden signed into law a measure designating the Pulse nightclub as a national memorial. Now, we should mention...
Oh, this has got to be a hard one because that was a gay nightclub, right? It's really hard for them to criticize like Muslims and Islam and everything because like they actually agree with them on like on the hardliners. They actually agree on most moral things, that women are disgusting their property. They should be like wearing more clothes. That gay people, trans people are all disgusting. They hate Jews. Like they actually align on a lot of shit, but they can't talk about that. So all they can talk about is terrorism. It's like the only thing they can really go over. That's why you hear them hit that terrorist argument over and over and over and over again. This has got to be like D-Day for Walsh. It's like Muslim terrorist attack? Hell yeah, but it was a gay nightclub. Fuck. Do I support it? Do I not support it? I don't know. I don't know. What does he give here? Let's see. I don't know what he said on this.
Because it matters, because it's the truth. That this connection that they're trying to make now and that Biden is sort of implying, and that we hear in the media between anti-gay hate and the Pulse nightclub shooting, that connection is not real.
To elaborate on what Matt's talking about, during the trial of the Pulse shooter's wife for alleged complicity in the attack, her defense tried to get a mistrial on the grounds that they weren't told her father-in-law, the shooter's father, was an FBI informant.
An FBI intelligence report indicates that agents told an unidentified undercover informant that they were investigating Mateen. The informant then became very upset that Mateen was under scrutiny, according to the report.
From there, her lawyer speculated that he was told his son was being investigated by the FBI, and he told them to back off. Now, there is a possibility of this being the case. However, no evidence has been brought forth that would prove it. But why is Matt bringing all of this up? Well, in my English as a first language video on Candace Owens, click here to watch, I went over how you can use layers of truth to sell something you might otherwise think is absurd as legitimate.
So let's take this back to the case of Mohammed Jallow. Did the federal government see him as a potential informant to be protected? Did they buy his story that he was reformed and deliberately spring him loose in order to set more traps for other terrorists? I mean, that's not a far-fetched conspiracy at all. The FBI does it all the time. They've also been known to encourage terrorists to commit mass shootings.
Matt takes the fact that the FBI has recruited informants and monitored suspected terrorists who ended up carrying out attacks in the past to say that this could be what's happening now. And if he left it at that, I would just call this speculation. But Matt takes it a step further.
Always.
Nobody asked any more questions. That seems to be the goal with the case of Mohammed Jallow as well. Now, if you're the cynical type and you're left to speculate, because that's all we can do when we're not given the full story, you might conclude that maybe there's some authoritarian political motives here. I mean, you might point to the fact that the same week that Jallow opened fire in Virginia, a Virginia state senator named Saddam Aslan Salim, yes, his name is literally Saddam.
Wow. Fuck off.
Helped pass a major unconstitutional anti-gun bill that he sponsored, which prohibits so-called assault firearms.
Now this is what we call a conspiracy theory. What Matt has just laid out is that the government engineered a terrorist attack as a distraction to pass state-level gun control. It's unfortunate for Matt that this isn't nearly as exciting as time travel and mystical Jews.
Is this the kind of result the Bureau is hoping for? We really don't know. We can conclude that our leadership class has implemented a regime in which, number one, you subsidize foreigners who hate you and try to kill you. And number two, when they do kill you or your neighbors, they use that as a pretext to strip everybody's constitutional rights. And it's not just Democrats who are doing this. Nearly 24 Republicans in the Senate just voted against legislation that would strip welfare funding from so-called, quote unquote, refugees. So again and again, our leaders are taking the side of foreign invaders. So these acts of terrorism will continue at an ever-increasing pace.
They have been decreasing.
Unless the government starts denaturalizing and deporting a lot more of these foreigners, a lot more.
Foreign does not mean terrorist.
And until that happens, and it may never happen, we have to do exactly what they did in Michigan and Virginia. We have to be ready to defend ourselves.
Be afraid of everyone, everywhere, all of the time. Violence is just around the corner. You are alone. No one loves you. Dad didn't really go out for cigarettes. You know how the Twitter algorithm is designed to piss you off for the sake of continued engagement? That's just Matt's show. Matt's next story is about how California wants to recognize 2 Muslim holidays as state holidays. You can imagine how he feels about this.
They want to make the Muslim holidays of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha into state holidays.
Of course, he's upset about this because he considers America a Christian nation and he doesn't want to give Muslims credit for anything that we might have done in our history.
And if you're a stupid person, you might say, well, but Christian holidays are recognized by the state. Well, actually, to begin with, that is barely true. Christmas is the only federally recognized Christian holiday. I mean, this is the whole problem with the multicultural approach, with the cult.
Is Easter not a federal holiday?
Christmas is the only federally recognized Christian holiday. I mean, this is the whole problem with the multicultural approach, with the cult of multiculturalism. What has Islam contributed to California? Literally nothing. Not a single thing. That's the answer.
For a guy who's so critical about the way people present themselves,
it's on a Sunday, I guess? Okay, I guess. Well,
uses the word literally wrong
Shut
a
up.
lot.
Again, the most generous thing we could say about it is that it's irrelevant. And that's why Christmas deserves to be a national holiday.
I'm sorry, but some of these long pauses make it so unintentionally funny that you can kind of forget just how racist this all is.
Everyone in America loves Christmas. Even if you're Jewish or Muslim or Hindu, you know about Christmas, you have positive associations with it, Christmas music, decorations, colors, Christmas movies, the whole thing.
Listen, I don't hate Christmas, but as someone who isn't Christian, I have always felt out of place in the environment of the Christmas season. Matt does not speak for me.
What about Eid al-Fitr? What is that?
I'd say you should be the one telling people what it is since you're the one who's complaining about it, but I'd rather you didn't even try.
It's not a federal holiday. Okay.
And what does that tell you?
After that might be the most unintentionally interesting story of the week because Matt is going to go over Erica Kirk conspiracies.
Amplified by guys like Ian Carroll and other quote-unquote independent creators.
It was here more than any other moment in the time that I watched him that Matt showed just how self-aware he really is.
And basically the Post claimed that an audio recording, which they also posted the audio recording, depicts Erica helping to facilitate sex trafficking for Jeffrey Epstein. So this person was accusing Erica as a child of being involved in a facilitating capacity with...
Oh, so children can't help bad guys now?
Sex trafficking.
You know that Erica Kirk being a right-wing nutjob does not in itself imply that any of the conspiracy theories around her are legitimate.
Not even bothering to throw in an allegedly or to couch the accusation in any way whatsoever. That post got 11 million views.
What's worth pointing out here is the way that Matt can easily dissect these accusations and read between the lines of intent and characterization, but he doesn't seem to realize that all of those criticisms would also apply to him.
And now he did do the smarmy, cowardly, passive-aggressive thing of allowing yourself plausible deniability because he reposted it and said it was something like, wow, this sounds an awful lot like her. And then later he could backtrack what she did and say, well, I never said it was her. What are you talking about? I wasn't trying to. I didn't imply anything.
So let's just hear what he has to say and see if it doesn't line up with what we've already heard.
I know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. Common sense shows what you're doing. I can't prove what's in your own head. I can't prove what's in your heart.
And if she said no, then I'll have to take her word for it. She's the only one who can speak to her own
what's going on in her own mind and her own heart.
Day 3 is done, and if you've ever worked in a fast food joint, you know how the oil smell kind of sticks to your skin after you're done with a shift? That's how it feels every day after I'm done watching Matt.
Hater. He hates the working class, by the way.
As I've already established, I like our dog Penny. If she attacked one of my kids, she's gone. Easy decision. I've never understood the people that treat this like there's any kind of question. It's something we need to think about. Like it's a tough call. And I've especially never understood the people, and this is what I've said over the years that gets me in trouble. It just makes me want to say it more. The people who treat their pets as children. I think it's we're all a family together. I think it's a sickness. I think it's deranged. It's also a sickness of the modern world. People insist on treating animals as equal to human. A lot of people obviously have pets instead of kids because pets are easier. And that's why people prefer pets over children. The reason is because they prefer themselves over children. When people say things like, dogs are better than people. Dogs would never commit terrorism or do mass shootings. Yeah, your dog wouldn't do that because he doesn't have opposable thumbs. There are definitely dog breeds that would do terrorism if they could. But mostly, yes, it's true that dogs don't commit acts of evil like humans do. And that's because dogs don't make moral choices.
True.
Dogs are not moral animals. You could just be rational, as I am. Dogs respond to incentives. Dogs respond to instinct. Dogs don't wrestle with the morality of a thing. So while dogs don't do the evil that human beings do, they also don't commit the acts of virtue and courage that humans do. There's no such thing as a virtuous dog. And anyone who wants to push back on that and say no.
I like how dogs are like more moral in his mind than like black people. Because they don't have the instinct to do evil acts. Good job, dude.
My dog is very virtuous. There can be virtuous dogs. Okay, well then you're saying that dogs make moral choices, which means you would also have to say that there are evil dogs. And yet you don't want to admit that either. Because when a dog bites someone, you say it's not the dog, it's the owner. So what you're saying is that dogs are capable of moral choices, but they only ever make good moral choices. So they're basically angelic creatures. There's like a whole new theology.
Day 4 is about how woke is destroying Democrat-led cities, and now the rich people in those cities are fleeing to red states. I'm sure this will be totally ideologically consistent and coherent, and also not involve black people making it worse.
So they didn't get much attention for obvious reasons, but believe it or not, a handful of white people actually managed to win major civil rights lawsuits during the BLM revolution. And one of the most egregious examples involved Starbucks, which was run by CEO Howard Schultz at the time.
From the get-go, he's firing on all cylinders. If the engine he's operating is in the General Lee.
You may remember this sordid episode in American history when a couple of black guys walked into a Starbucks and sat down without placing an order. The store wouldn't let them loiter or use the bathroom without making a purchase, which makes sense since it's a private business and they don't want the property to become a crack house.
Wow, that was just a wild statement. Okay. And it's even more egregious when you consider that the men in question settled with the city over this fiasco for a symbolic $1 and $200,000 towards grants for young entrepreneurs.
But the two black guys decided that this was their Rosa Parks moment, and they refused to leave to the point that they were arrested for trespassing.
This is the second time he's referenced black people refusing to get up from a seat as a Rosa Parks moment. I could just rhetorically ask if there's anything to read into there, but I'm lazy, so I'll let Matt do it.
I know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. Common sense shows what you're doing, but I can't prove what's in your own head. I can't prove what's in your heart. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better illustration of how self-described progressives like Howard Schultz operate.
Howard Schultz left the Democratic Party in 2019 because he thought they went too far left. More importantly, Starbucks had a gross profit of $4 billion in 2023. $25 million isn't nothing, but it certainly was not a substantial hit.
He makes a big show of major reform in the name of equity. He says that he'll make Starbucks lobbies and bathrooms open to everybody, whether they make a purchase or not. So he'll turn them into, basically like refugee camps.
Refugee camps is an excessively inflammatory description meant to imply that your local Starbucks became a haven for foreigners like everything else.
Starbucks has started opening offices in Tennessee for up to 2,000 employees to escape the mayhem of Seattle.
What Matt isn't saying is that while the offices will employ up to 2,000 people, they're only relocating dozens from the Seattle offices, which they've confirmed are staying as their headquarters.
There are dozens of us. Dozens!
Now, there's now an epidemic of rich leftists fleeing from Democrat-controlled jurisdictions. Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg, who spent $500 million to help elect Democrats in 2020.
That's not what he spent it on.
That's never true. That they always lie about this. It's so cringe.
It to nonprofits that help transition our election system so we could deal with COVID. But then Matt has problems with transitioning in general, so...
Just announced the purchase of a mansion in Miami, so he's apparently leaving California as well.
Apparently, being a key word to this assumption, given that Zuckerberg still has several homes in California and an entire compound in Hawaii.
And on it goes. We're witnessing a mass exodus of billionaires from states that have been destroyed by their politics.
It is not a mass exodus. These CEOs are not leftists. Leftists would not give Donald Trump money. Leftists would not give money to Republicans in general. Matt has an agenda, and he's committing to the bit.
Right now, without any foreign migration, California would lose something like 120,000 people per year. On the other hand, Texas is on track to gain hundreds of thousands of residents, even without any foreign migration. So is Florida. So a lot of people, not just the wealthy, are escaping these hellholes that Democrats have created.
Wow. It is farcical to frame this as rich people fleeing because of crime and poverty when the crime rate of Matt Walsh's own city, Nashville, Tennessee, is near enough twice that of both New York and Los Angeles. And as for the population decreases, if you want to link that to any one primary thing, it's housing costs, meaning that the demand to live there has not actually gone down.
for the most part, the only people who are willing to live in New York or downtown Los Angeles are coming here from the third world. So they don't mind seeing people, crap on the streets and all of that. Feels like home.
Jesus Christ.
There's plenty to criticize about the way city and state governments
Like this is, I think in general, unless I don't watch a bunch of Nick Fuentes, but like it really does sound worse than anything I hear from Fuentes' stream. Like he's
I
like,
see clips every once in a while, yeah, but it's not like this.
he's on some
At
like,
least I don't feel like.
Walsh is on some crazy racial essentialist shit. Jesus.
operate. But this is just rewriting history in order to blame the left. Matt's entire ideology is a string of contradictions that tie your brain in knots. These cities are crime-ridden hellholes because of immigration, but the immigrants' ability to actually come here is dependent upon these cities being a desirable place to be. What Matt is saying is that these people are simultaneously making these cities worse because they're dirty foreigners, and that they're taking all of the high-paying jobs.
These are the kind of people who are doing most of the damage, by the way.
I'm personally against wealth taxes, but I wouldn't start my criticism of it with, look at these women celebrating.
It's a group of women who are elated. They're genuinely thrilled to be taking other people's money. But Democrats in Washington State, they're not concerned about any of that. They have an openly socialist female mayor in Seattle who admits that she relies on her parents to pay her bills.
The horror.
So their plan apparently is to girl boss.
Okay, that situation seemed kind of weird, but
their way through this. That'd be one thing if these women could point to a way in which all their government spending to this point has actually benefited American taxpayers. But they can't do that because government spending is mostly fraudulent, as we've seen. Whenever Democrats implement massive taxes, they squander.
Remember Doge, guys? All the fraud they found?
I like how
The
in
money
the
on fraud
depositions
and
they had to like admit like they didn't actually meaningfully find anything.
Because government spending is mostly fraudulent, as we've seen. Whenever Democrats implement massive taxes, they squander the money on fraud and nonprofits that launder the money.
Once again, Matt wants us to forget that Doge tried to find all the fraud and they could not.
Let's take a look at this data, which was collected by the researcher Charlie Smerkley. It says, quote, New York City spends more per homeless person than the median.
Do you think Fuentes would disagree or condemn any of what Walsh is saying? I don't know, honestly. I haven't engaged in heavy neo-Nazi spaces for like half a decade, but usually the reframed way that neo-Nazis would sell their racial separatist ideology is usually they wouldn't shit on or hardcore attack other ethnic groups. What they would say is that, like the advanced neo-Nazi would say, actually, I think that all these ethnic groups are way more beautiful than even you do because I think that every ethnic group is capable of producing different beautiful things. So that's why I think that African people should go back to Africa. I think that they won't say that for blacks now, though, because they're part of American history and because they all like Kanye West. Honestly, that's really it. But they'll say like Indians are beautiful. They have their own culture. They should celebrate it in India. And Americans of European descent, whatever that means, are beautiful and we should have our own culture. Like I think all of us should be in our own countries, creating our own culture and trading and facilitating all of that exchange like in our own places instead of like melting potting all of it together in the United States and destroying everybody's culture. It's usually that's like the advanced neo-Nazi defense for racial separatist ideology. But this whole like just shitting on other people or saying like black people or people from third world countries, the reason why their countries look that way is because that's just what the only thing their genetic ancestry can produce. That's like a crazy hateful. That's just like I don't know. Maybe a lot of the other neo-Nazis have gone back to that now. I just haven't listened to any of their talk for a while, but I don't know.
New York City household earns $81,705 per person. And guess what? In that period, by most estimates, the homeless population has only increased by at least 30%.
Again, homelessness rose with housing costs. So if I read the actual stats correctly, and again, I'd encourage you to look this stuff up yourself to confirm, according to the City of New York's own reporting, the number of homeless increased, but the actual rate of unsheltered homelessness decreased, and the city actually has it in their planning to decrease the budget by 2029. But who knows if that will pan out. The point is, this isn't the complete disaster Matt frames it as, except for how expensive and fraudulent it must be for the richest city in the world to spend the most amount of money on its homeless population, that it still manages to keep over 95% sheltered.
And some estimates say the increase was closer to 80%. You're spending more on homeless people, you're giving them more free stuff, and as a consequence, you end up with more homeless people. So where did the money go? Well, it went to Democrat-aligned nonprofits and NGOs and activists. They waste tens of millions of dollars all the time. None of these nonprofits have any incentive to actually fix the problem of homelessness because if they did that, the money would disappear.
So to start with, nonprofits do not have the power to end homelessness.
That's actually super true. This is like how police officers don't want to fix crime because then they wouldn't have anything to do for their job. Or how roofers want to make your roofs horrible so that they can keep selling you more roofs. Nobody in society actually wants to do anything because if they did, then they wouldn't have a job anymore.
That's because they do not operate as a means of end.
What?
That's why nothing ever happens.
Exactly. Shrimp allows. That's why the SPLC was the sole funder of the KKK and everything else. Yeah.
The money would disappear.
So to start with, nonprofits do not have the power to end homelessness because they do not operate as a means of ending homelessness. It's the same way nobody criticizes hospitals because people still get sick.
If anything,
well, look at leftists. I don't know about that one. And all these guys do, actually. Remember Jordan Peterson, that claim for a while that floated around? I don't know if people still make this or not, but that medicine holistically, like from the start, has actually caused more death than saved. It's killed more people than harmed. Or I'm sorry, it's killed more people than helped. I think. There's a claim
How would that even make any sense?
I don't know. They say through like medical malpractice or medicine killing people. It's a retarded fucking thing. But there were a lot of people that at one point in time were on this train. Somebody can link the Jordan Peterson clip of him saying it on Joe Rogan. But
they have an incentive to make the problem worse, which is exactly what they're doing.
Matt doesn't care about these issues as problems to be solved. He only cares about wielding them against Democrats. Because when he wields them as weapons against Democrats, you stop thinking about the problems with Republicans. You might be thinking that Democrats are worse for poor people. At the same time, Republicans are busy gutting our social services.
They certainly don't have any incentive to tell the truth, which is that fixing homelessness is impossible. Practically speaking, you can't force people not to become drug addicts. You can't force people not to alienate their family and friends so they have no one around them who wants to help them. Even if PATH had built that hotel for the homeless, it still wouldn't have helped them. They would have just destroyed the place. If you want to fight homelessness, the best you can do is create the economic conditions where people can get jobs and close the border so that fentanyl doesn't flow into the country.
The primary importer of fentanyl is American citizens at ports of entry.
And then let people make their own choices. But Democrats oppose all of that. We're meant to ignore all the waste and conclude that the real problem is that taxes simply aren't high enough. The red states, particularly Florida and Texas, are attracting tens of thousands of new residents precisely because their governments have rejected the ideology of the deadbeats.
The confession is hidden in the description. These people are moving to red states, but they still have their blue state opinions. Ergo, they aren't moving for ideological reasons. For all intents, it's because they got priced out of where they were living. The red states aren't doing anything to attract these people on economic grounds because they care more about the cultural grounds. The demand is still there to live in the blue states, not the red ones. The higher cost of living in blue states means that there is still much greater demand to live there than in the red states. But because people get priced out, they're stuck in the red ones.
The problem is that most of these new residents aren't renouncing the socialist ideology that they're running away from. They're like a Mongol horde.
Up next, Trump will withhold his endorsement from Republicans who don't vote for the SAVE Act.
At this point, Thune says that he will not abolish the filibuster or implement the talking filibuster. And in fact, he said the measure is unlikely to pass. That's all he's intending to do. This is all a big symbolic move to get Democrats on the record that they oppose this bill, which we already know they do. They can pass it. They have the means. The president is calling on them to use the means at their disposal. American people on their side, voter ID is very popular. There is no excuse. The only reason they will give and have given for failing to use the means at their disposal, talking filibuster or abolishing the filibuster entirely, they're worried that the Democrats will do the same. You know, when they get into power, Democrats will do the same. And as I've argued many times, that reasoning just doesn't work because there's no limiting principle to it. If it's justified to decline to push forward your agenda, in this case, for fear of Democrat reprisal when they get into power, well, then it will always be justified, and you'll never push through your agenda at any point because there will always be the risk. No, the certainty that Democrats will be in power again.
I'd like to point out for any...
People are moving to blue cities and red states. No, most of the people that go to the red states are usually moving to red areas. Like, I have a lot of friends that I used to know in LA that were, or they were up in San Francisco, but like software engineers and stuff, and now they're ranchers. They like ride around on horses and they...
West Virginia.
Yep. Yeah, they throw the lassos around and stuff, or sometimes they do farming. Some of them just drive tractor trailers up and down long stretches of highway for no reason. They play country music, you know.
Farrier enthusiasts out there, that when considering the right way to move forward, if you're in alignment with your ideological opponents on tactics, you should get better tactics.
The next time that the Dems have Congress and the White House, which might be in 2028, gloves are off, bets are off, and they're going to do it. They're going to pursue their agenda ruthlessly. Because the other thing that's happened is we had the assassination of one of the most important conservative political figures in the world, and that was just one example of brutal left-wing militant violence. And in response to that, has there been any kind of major nationwide crackdown on left-wing militants and extreme?
What? How about an executive order declaring random domestic people for the first time in all of U.S. history are terrorist organizations? How about the unprecedented amount of legal attacks that the DOJ has done on literally fucking everybody in the United States that they declare, not literally everybody, but on people that they declare as Trump's political enemies? The SPLC being the most recent victim. The ICE being sent to different states, and obviously 2 American citizens getting killed.
And those who are funding and facilitating and encouraging and promoting this violence.
What Matt Walsh intentionally fails to realize here is that the left-wing militants are all focused on Israel right now.
Well, guess what? When Democrats get in office, they're going to do that to us. The only difference is that we haven't committed any crimes. Doesn't matter to them. Right-wing extremist violence basically doesn't exist. I mean, it almost never happens. And anytime it does happen, it is going to be a true, quote-unquote lone wolf. We don't have the organizations, institutions set up, funding and facilitating this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like you have the president of the United States pardoning them, one of who you defended earlier in the week.
Meanwhile, in the case of the left, you've got this actual conspiracy to commit violence all over the country, and there has not been any serious major crackdown. I mentioned this the other day, and someone said, well, they just arrested 7 Antifa people in Texas or whatever. Okay, great. You're not in power to do the bare minimum.
Next story, Zoran Mamdani cares about queer people in New York.
It's called the Office of LGBT.
Oh. It was this. I can't believe you've never seen this before.
And we then,
I suspect if you did the statistics properly, I suspect that medicine, independent of public health, kills more people than it saves. I suspect if you factor in phenomena like the development of superbugs in hospitals, for example, that overall the net consequence of hospitals is negative. Now that's just a guess, and it could easily be wrong, but it also could not be wrong, and that is a good example, or that's where my thinking about what we don't know has taken me with regards to the critique of what we do.
The fact that it's even plausible is a stunning.
Well, medical error is the third leading cause of
the argument. The fact that I can even think that is how crazy we are at today.
Death.
Yep.
And that doesn't take into account the generation of superbugs, for example.
The generation of superbugs, or, if you're thinking broadly about it, I don't know where you stand on this issue, but I have been
the lab
tracking
leak one. I'm coming.
the lab leak hypothesis for COVID, and it is very distressing to me that as much as it's an unsettled question, the evidence for the lab leak gets stronger over time. All of the competing hypotheses fall one by one and are...
By the way, that was not true. The evidence for lab leak only got weaker and weaker and weaker as time went on, and more evidence for zoonotic origin of the virus got stronger and stronger as time went on. That's where we're at right now. There's no serious evidence of it being a lab leak, but...
Placed by some alternative that hasn't yet been falsified.
Really?
Then why does no one care about COVID right now?
That's why nobody will debate me on it. And everybody cares about COVID right now. Or Taylor Lorenz does, at least. Boom!
LGBTQIA plus affairs. The so-called queer community is under attack, he says. In what way exactly? Well, he can't say. I mean, can anyone list even one way in which the quote-unquote queer community is under attack? Well, of course they can. But you listen to that guy talking, you hear this guy in a dress, and it feels like a relic from an ancient world. It feels like the ancient world of 2021. You don't hear about it as much anymore. You don't see them shoving drag queens in our faces like they used to.
This was never a thing that the left was doing. All of the noise that was made about gay people and lesbians.
This is why I'm saying it sucks when conservatives are allowed to invent problems. They get to fix the problems because they never existed in the first place. How many times do we hear about all the fucking drag queen storytime hour bullshit things? Yeah, like where did these people go? Did they make it illegal? Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was gone as soon as Trump was elected. Like they think he fixed it, I guess. But like this is just never like as real a problem as they try to make it.
Well, get ready for Christmas when a Democrat's in power too. That's coming back. The war on Christmas.
Oh boy, true. You're still limited to a certain number of abilities, even if you use these syringes, right? I don't know if I should just toss these. I don't know why I'm holding on to them.
And trans people was amplified by the right in order to make you upset that you were constantly seeing these people, as though they themselves were not manufacturing the media environment that made you feel like you were being constantly bombarded with them.
And what that tells us is that if these people get back into power, we're probably going back to this. I mean, this is all coming back.
Well, threaten me with a good time, why don't you?
Leftists are waging war on civilization, waging war on God. And also it's narcissism. I mean, that's what the LGBT agenda is all about. Worship of the self, celebration of the self, putting your own proclivities and desires above everything and everybody else.
Next up, billionaire Mark Andreessen doesn't believe in introspection. Matt disagrees with him, but in doing so, he unintentionally circles around into agreeing with him.
And something like the opposite of that is the case. So apparently Plato and Aristotle were not introspective, or else they weren't great men of history. I don't know which. Either way, it's retarded.
I'm not thrilled that word made a comeback, but whatever.
Pretty haunting, actually, when you think about the fact that you've got these tech CEOs who are denying the existence of an inner self at all. Like, that does not bode well for us. The men of history had rich, vibrant interior lives. It's people today who are dead inside, who are unthinking, who have no introspection.
And whose fault is that, Matt?
Therapy, as we know today, talk therapy, is a 20th century invention and certainly did not become common, mainstream until the 20th century. So men were not sitting around prior to, about 100 years ago, whining about their feelings to a therapist.
The problem of people today lacking introspection is due to them intentionally seeking out time for help with introspection.
The great men of history had a rich interior life. They were contemplative, they were introspective, but they weren't full of self-pity, and they didn't focus much on how they feel or how they felt about themselves.
True.
See, that's the difference. 200 years ago, there was an emphasis on knowing yourself. Today, the emphasis is on feeling good about yourself. Because, in fact, feeling good about yourself all the time means, in many cases, in practice, not knowing yourself.
Wow.
So a lot of therapy, and the way that our culture works in general, is to encourage you to lie about yourself to yourself so that you can feel better about yourself.
High self-esteem? What am I? The woman I belittle for being a woman?
Or to put you on drugs so that you feel better while your inner self is obliterated.
I promise you, even if you take nothing else away from this, even if you disagree with everything else I've said, even if you think I'm a bleeding heart leftist libtard soy boy, antidepressants and ADHD meds do not change who you are. This idea spread on the right.
Oh, they do. They turn you into a LGBTQIA++ Muslim terrorist.
And some really dumb parts of the left. That psych meds ruin your mind is one of the worst things they have ever convinced people of. I would not be able to make. I probably wouldn't have been able to even start making these videos without medication. I did not obliterate myself. I was able to fulfill myself. And lastly, there is a long COVID awareness day.
There's basically nothing that isn't a long COVID symptom. Long COVID is everything. It's everywhere. We all have long COVID. We all are long COVID. Long COVID is in all of us. We have all become long COVID.
Is there really a long COVID awareness day? No way. Is there?
But long COVID is the friends we made along the way.
Long COVID is real. If you need evidence, recall all the stories about how people who got COVID suddenly couldn't taste anything, or everything started tasting like sewage. That wasn't nerve damage in their mouth. That was neurological damage.
You keep forgetting? Have I asked this before? Is this really a thing?
In their brain. It took a very long time for a lot of them to get over it, and some of them
still
haven't.
Liberals love these kinds of... There's nothing that a liberal loves more than a disease like this. They can't get enough. They literally cannot get enough of them. The best thing you can do for them, the best remedy, is to not pity them and to not take it serious. If anyone tells you they have long COVID, you should just laugh hysterically at them.
That's what I do when people tell me they're vaccine injured, by the way.
Point at them and laugh. And even if it doesn't help them, it at least is satisfying for you, and so that matters also. Well, this is all just slop. It sounds good if you're stupid, but
true.
It's not exactly national news, but it very much relates to the topic at hand. So this is a viral clip from the Whatever podcast. If we were going to start a campaign of mass denaturalization, not just mass deportation, which we also need, and we don't have right now, but also mass denaturalization, what would that look like? And how do you identify the people who should be denaturalized? Fortunately, if we're going to pursue this, many of these people, they don't hide it. They don't hide the fact that they lied. And so here's a clip that I think kind of makes that point. Watch.
Let's say the United States went to war with Colombia. Who do you side with?
Colombia.
Get the fuck out of our country. Holy fuck. Why do you side with Colombia?
Because I'm from Colombia.
You've lived here for 10 years and you're now a citizen. Becoming a citizen requires taking the oath.
Doesn't it matter why?
I imagine it would, yeah. Like, it's hard to say, fuck, I might side with fucking Colombia.
I can't give you a de facto
I might side with
but...
Colombia. Fuck, if the U.S. is just attacking them for no fucking reason, I feel like it really depends.
Well, if it's no reason, then yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you side with Colombia. But, like, if there's a reason, then yeah, I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
The oath of allegiance. Did you say that?
Yeah.
So you lied to get into the United States, bro?
I didn't lie.
You have allegiance to Colombia.
It's not allegiance.
Originally, you said Colombia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll stick to that answer.
Okay, so first of all, this is an easy call because anybody who has face tattoos should be deported anyway. Certainly lose your right to vote, but also you shouldn't be a citizen anymore.
Epic.
But second, this woman obviously needs to be denaturalized and kicked out of the country. She lied on her application.
True.
If we're going to start denaturalizing, this would be a good place to start.
True.
Trump administration, that woman shouldn't be hard to find. Go find her and denaturalize her and kick her out of the country. But you got to do it. Denaturalizing citizens and kicking them out of the country. That is... how
are people going to take you seriously otherwise?
That is, in comparison to to the recent precedent, that's a radical step. But we need radical steps. So I'm all on board for it. We should create an atmosphere.
Does he have a candle next to him?
Two, I think. Oh, no, just one of them, yeah.
He's talking about denaturalizing people?
Whoa. Why does Daily Wire keep Matt Walsh hired? He's absolutely insane. You understand this is what Candace Owens... This is where Candace Owens was working for how long, right? I mean...
Where if you're an immigrant and you come here and you get to be a citizen and you're naturalized, where now you realize you have to walk a kind of a fine line and you have to mind your P's and Q's or you're gone. We made you a citizen and we can unmake it. So you better get in line. You better go out there. You better love this country, at least act like you do. If you don't, fake it. You better fake it.
Jesus.
What is the First Amendment?
Because if you don't, we're going to kick you out. Most immigrants, the vast majority, feel exactly like face tattoo woman.
What? Okay.
I feel like most immigrants who come to the United States love America.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it depends on a lot of things, but yeah, generally speaking, I imagine most of them like it, yeah.
Majority feel exactly like face tattoo woman feels.
Damn.
Okay, one last day.
According to the most recent studies on the subject, the average American now subscribes to 4 different streaming services.
Oh my God, are we not talking about foreigners poisoning the blood of the nation?
And yet the surveys and our own experience tell us that most people aren't satisfied with these services.
Finally, something else?
The art of filmmaking has declined, which everyone has noticed. In a word, everything kind of sucks now. And why is that?
Foreshadowing disappointment?
Well, the version of Seinfeld that's on Netflix is widescreen, even though the show was never intended to be widescreen. For the Netflix version, they simply just cropped the original image so that it fits widescreen TVs. And that means they deleted some of the content on the top and bottom of the image in every frame.
Oh, I see where this is going.
It's more significant than you might think. I mean, if we look at films and shows as pieces of art, then it's a problem that these services are making alterations to the art. You can't access 5 episodes of Always Sunny in Philadelphia because they were retroactively canceled during the BLM hysteria. Basically, any episode where a character appears in blackface...
Here I come. Here I come.
Even if the point of the gag is to mock Danny DeVito for wearing blackface has been erased. And South Park took 5 episodes offline because they depicted Muhammad in an unflattering manner, which is a capital offense in the Muslim world, which we've now imported to the United States. So, they decided to stick to mocking Jesus and Christians and Trump voters instead, which is safe. Which is one of the reasons why comedy is dead, by the way. All the comedians are cowards.
Yes, but for the inverse of the reason you're suggesting.
The problem is not simply that wokeness has run amok or that left-wing DEI bureaucrats have taken over the entertainment industry, although that's all true.
It hasn't, but we're almost done, so just finish your piece.
I mean, in every area of life, we are confronted with an infinite number of options. And along the same lines as mentioned, there's no communal experience of film anymore. This is really the main thing. Everybody's watching different things. We're not experiencing this stuff together. Now, say what you want about a movie like, say, Titanic. That's an example I've used in the past, but
it's a movie that likely fits the age range of his target demographic to poke the nostalgia button as well.
That was a cultural sensation in a way that no film today is, or probably ever can be. And yes, it's easy to point out that the Oscars implemented DEI and they won't give awards to productions that aren't diverse in some way.
Really? Because that's what you've been doing this entire time.
Now, I'm not going to wax poetic very much about the blockbuster days, but the fact is a lot of people are starting to think about how things were back then. I saw a post on X saying that this is a trailer for one of the most popular indie video games right now. And it's a game where you play as a clerk at a video store.
It's really interesting the way these monologues reveal their motivation. It's nothing sinister or cynical in itself, but it goes to show that basically anything in the zeitgeist can get pulled back to race relations in the United States if you simply decide to frame them that way. Which, if you think about it, is pretty much its own form of critical race theory. It's just that where a college professor would explain how these things intersect in the intention of artists and the consequences of their expression, Matt is basically taking it one step back to say that it's the intent of the production companies and the consequences of their expression.
This is what passes for entertainment today, apparently. So the video game industry is in even worse shape than I had thought. But actually, there's a reason that the game is popular. People are nostalgic for the pre-smartphone, pre-streaming era.
No, these kinds of games are popular because they're easy for streamers to play while they talk to their chats, and they provide a modestly satisfying feedback loop with low stakes. Farming Simulator doesn't signify our desire to return to an agrarian civilization, and Power Washing Simulator isn't about a desire to erase graffiti. But from there, it becomes yet another diatribe from someone about people ruining their attention spans with phones.
And the streaming companies realize that, so they have to dumb everything down. They have to take into account that most people are not paying attention to what's on the screen. And that black woman was the hero, of course. That's the other way you know.
He's so
hates black
dude,
people.
He's so ass-pained about everything. Oh my God.
It's a Netflix streaming slop. Streaming shows are now a generic commodity served up without any artistic vision or integrity whatsoever. This is
like, you gotta wonder, and I don't know, maybe Matt makes better criticisms here, and this guy is just being a biased Nancy. But like, at some point you gotta wonder, am I giving the exact same criticisms to art from 20 years ago that every single person in all of human history has given to art 20 years ago? Am I saying literally the exact same fucking thing?
Doesn't due to any mysterious epidemic of ADHD. It's because we have an infinite amount of content streaming into our faces all day, every day. And it will continue until the moment it stops being profitable. Until there's a crash in the entertainment industry, which could be happening based on the data from Los Angeles. Until it does, the amount of content will continue to increase exponentially. The monoculture will remain a thing of the past. And one by one, it will generate films just for you. Kind of like how Spotify will generate you a playlist based on the songs you listen to. And then you listen to those songs, and then it generates another playlist based on the fact that you listen to those songs. So pretty soon, your taste is not your taste anymore. You have the taste that the algorithm has kind of assigned to you. And the same thing's going to happen with movies. It already is.
It really cannot be said enough how similar Matt's
Notice how none of these people criticize, like, the algorithm? Do they? I feel like I don't hear it that much. I don't know if I hear Hassan or lefties criticize it either. They always say, like, the mainstream media. I guess these guys love social media. Maybe they do, and I just
Well, they
miss
live
it.
and die by the algorithm.
Yeah, I know. That's my contention, obviously. But I'm sure they must at some point. I don't know. I feel like I used to hear more of that criticism a long time ago. The algorithm. Now I feel like nobody fucking talks about it, but what are you going to do?
Fact is to Asmongold's.
Do you think people are going to call them anti-Semitic in the U.S.? They already are.
And this will be the moment when popular culture is destroyed forever. We won't have any kind of shared experience of anything anymore.
Goodbye.
And we can put the phones down.
Goodbye, culture.
Cancel some of these services. Intentionally choose to reclaim some semblance of a shared culture. I don't have a lot of faith that we'll make that choice.
Outside of all the obviously racist stuff Matt has said in the time I've watched him, I find this the most offensive. I'm sure he'd call me a triggered lib for that, but really, this entire week he has denigrated immigrants, minorities, non-Christians, every non-heteronormative or neurotypical, and everyone else, which to be clear does include straight white people, who exist within the artistic communities that create the culture he is now lamenting. Matt, you helped kill the monoculture. You gleefully held a pillow over its face as it struggled for air, and in the silent stillness that followed, you now yearn for the warmth of a corpse. I have a lot of things I want to say, but instead I'll just ask. What did you expect? Oy. To summarize the rest of this, he went over a Chris Rufo article about a bridge for animals in California going over budget.
That's the project lead you're looking for, a blonde woman in a pink vest carrying a stuffed animal.
Chris Rufo, if you're unaware, is the conservative activist who started the hysteria over critical race theory, as he admitted on Twitter. Something women, something minorities, and fraud. A children's book author murdered her husband, and Matt uses that example to talk about bringing back the death penalty.
I think that we need to bring the death penalty back as a political issue, as a debate in this country.
A judge gave a black 18-year-old who committed armed robbery 25 years in prison.
We've given female judges a hard time on the show, rightly so.
I'm not particularly torn up about that. However, I will point out that the sponsor after that is Balance of Nature.
This episode is sponsored by Balance of Nature,
a brand that had to get pulled from shelves for misleading claims about being able to cure cancer and COVID, which you'd think would be important to someone who cares a lot about fraud. And lastly, Joy Reid compared Iran's oppression to the United States. Who cares? I thought there'd be more here. For all of the hullabaloo surrounding Matt Walsh, I'm just disappointed.
Big congratulations to Kim Jong-un. According to reports, the supreme leader of North Korea just won re-election with, get this, 99.93% of the vote. The thing that I really admire, frankly, is that he didn't compromise on his principles to get there. And I thought there was one campaign promise in particular that he made that was really effective.
This
and
is
it definitely
bullying.
resonated. And that's when he promised that if you don't vote for him, he'll kill your family. Where he said that if you don't vote for him, he'll throw your family in a dungeon, they'll be eaten by dogs. That was the thing in particular that I think, according to a lot of the exit polls that I read, it really motivated a lot of voters. A lot of voters said that was the thing.
All right, I can't. I'm going to get remonetized in 4 days. I'm not going to say anything.
Good.
The idea that you could ever make any jokes about this while you don't even believe in the outcome of the 2020 election is beyond comprehension. It is so unbelievably shameful that you could think that you were in a position to make these types of jokes, but whatever.
It's still possible to reach a consensus. I think Kim Jong-un has proved that.
Audience program off.
What is there for me to say that you don't already get? I'm still struck by how explicit this week was in its overt everything.
Because it's racist. They think I'm a racist.
One of the things that this guy said a while ago about how, I don't know exactly what he meant when he was saying it's your fault, Matt Walsh, or what did you expect for the culture. If this is what he meant, though, I agree. I don't like the fact that conservatives have sat on the sidelines of culture, it feels like, for my entire fucking life, where the conservatives have bitched and moaned and cried about the university professors, there are no conservatives, and in Hollywood there are no conservatives, and there are no conservative movies or media, there's no conservative singers, there's no conservative anything. It's like, okay, well, why don't you participate? No, that's fucking gay. That's gay as fuck, boy. We only do STEM over here. Arts are for losers. You do music, that means you're a fucking loser. Long hair, loser. Okay? Everything about doing anything having to do with art, theater kid, fucking loser, and gay, and raped, and horrible. All these people, losers. And then you do this for like decade after decade after decade, and then it's like, why, in Hollywood, give it a conservative. It's like, what the fuck? Why, like, true. Duck outside gets it.
Oh there, Father. I hear you're a racist now, Father.
Look, the main takeaway is just, don't be racist. I was pretty mid on Squid Game when it first came out. I respected the vibe, the clear intent of the story, the effort being put in by all involved. It basically operates the way a lot of modern TV does for me, where I can see all of the craft being put in, but it never really becomes more than the sum of its parts beyond its popularity for having a message.
I said I've played these games before.
See also The Boys. But there is one thing I want to talk about with it. See, in Season 2, the show introduces a new element to the games.
Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast? Hell yeah. We're giving kids eyeballs, yes.
The players get to vote on whether or not to go home then and there, with the winnings apportioned equally. But everyone playing has extreme amounts of debt, so every time they keep voting to keep going. Now that has the potential to be a very irritating little subplot. However, it managed to premiere only a month and some days after the 2024 presidential election.
Is that okay?
Marty.
It is absolutely wild that this show, which would have had to have been written months, if not years prior to this, manages to line up so well with the period it's been released in. Of course, it would still have salience if
they don't have anything to add to culture. Yeah, because conservatives end up in this weird world where conservatives will talk about how they hate culture, they hate liberal culture, and they hate liberals in control of culture, but all conservative culture is literally just liberal culture from like 30 or 40 years ago. Like if
or they try to co-op like someone brand new.
Maybe. No, not even. It's always just old. It's old stuff. Like you think the fucking Eagles and Journey were out here on stage espousing conservative values and limited government? Or you think that like Michael Jackson and Klaus Nomi and all these like crazy and the fucking who is the We Are the Champion, Queen and the Beatles, that these guys are out here like, oh yes, we believe in a strict society where the gays are, you know, persecuted and where we don't, like, it's all like liberal culture from days of old. Like if you turn on the radio and you hear fucking Metallica and Sting, right? These are guys who are wearing fucking makeup and shit on stage who are fucking a million bitches and bros, right? You turn on the radio station, you hear one of these songs playing, it's the lead into a fucking conservative show. It's like, what the fuck? And then if you find like the hardcore, the younger ones, they'll be like, well, you know, back when Brahms and Mozart were the real musicians. Like, what are 2 symphonies from Mozart? Do you ever listen to any of this music ever? You don't listen to this shit. Why the fuck are you pretending to?
It's the country.
Yeah, not even. No, they don't. They all listen now. The young ones all listen to fucking Kanye West. Ugh.
The US presidential election went in the other direction, but it wouldn't have been so PTSD-inducing. I'm sorry, Squid. I was unfamiliar with your game. But the problem with being unintentionally prophetic is that it only happens in the broadest possible strokes, meaning that Squid Game only engages with the voting system in terms of the metaphor for capitalism rather than politics. Of course, I can't exactly blame them for that. I'm talking about American politics in reference to a Korean show. So Fight Club, yes, I switched topics, roll with me, is a 1999 movie starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, directed by David Fincher, and based on the book of the same name by Chuck Palahniuk. It's about a dissatisfied, nameless corporate drone who befriends David Fincher, and based on the book of the same name by Chuck Palahniuk. It's about a dissatisfied, nameless corporate drone who befriends a traveling soap salesman and...
True, Fluid Fish One, true. All of it goes back to the cultural theory of, what was that psych paper that came out? When you're in your teens, that's when you're kind of forming your... the cultural things that you're the warmest to, and then you grow up the rest of your life thinking that was the best shit. Whatever music you listen to, whatever movies you watched when you were a teenager, that's the stuff that stays with you forever. And conservatives are just too stupid to figure out that they're playing that same pattern that every single fucking person, every generation has played out for their entire lives. Like, why aren't things like they were when I was young?
And named by Chuck Palahniuk. It's about a dissatisfied, nameless corporate drone who befriends a traveling soap salesman and starts a fight club. Of course, there's more to it than that. Yes. Insomnia, terrorism, penguins, a girl.
It's cancer, right?
And the way men are culturally pressured into a performance of masculinity, which is ultimately destructive to themselves and everyone around them, leading to the violent rejection of society in pursuit of that masculinity's true fulfillment. In other words,
Cringe.
It's about the way men end up becoming fascists.
Cringe.
His name is Robert Paulson.
So why am I breaking the first 2 rules of Fight Club and talking about Fight Club? Because Fight Club and Squid Game are a lot alike. How are they alike? So horseshoe theory is the premise that the more you diverge from the center of the political spectrum, the closer you become to your political opposite. This isn't based on a shared desired outcome, but rather the means by which you intend to achieve that outcome.
We can't all wear the same thing. We're gonna look like a team.
So?
A team of dorks.
Moderates at the center work within the system, and as you diverge, you begin to seek faster and more immediate solutions outside the system. A communist who believes that the best path to achieving communism is by democratic majority, functionally, isn't much of a communist given their participation in and tacit endorsement of an unpreferred political and economic system. However, a communist that rejects that political and economic system via means outside the socially acceptable will find common cause in trying to achieve a revolution with those on the right who also reject the political and economic system in favor of their own. See, 1930s Germany. The trick is that each side thinks they're the ones who's going to be in control when the fires are put out and the dust is settled. Now, to bring it back to Squid Game, democracy is presented in Squid Game entirely as a tool of the wealthy to facilitate their control over the poor by pitting their interests against each other, making the need for violent revolution all but inevitable. Here's the thing. That's not an accurate representation of the system. This is a representation of the system to someone who does not like democracy. Because in real life, democracy is something that the wealthy need to constantly subvert in order to achieve their ends. It constantly gets in their way. Democracy offers a means for the public to remove the wealthy's power where they would otherwise need force. It's not something that exists as a means of granting people the illusion of control over their lives. It is the means of that control. Squid Game, like Fight Club, only posits that the system is bad based on a relationship to it that is, in the most neutral sense of the word, resentful. But where Fight Club presents that resentment as the result of social pressures and toxic masculinity sending isolated men into a spiral of depression, delusion, and worshipping authoritarian strongmen,
Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives.
Squid Game takes that resentment and justifies it by directing it at the system and framing it through class consciousness.
No! No, don't do it, you asshole! Fucking loser!
What are you so worked up about?
Put a lot of money on that dickhead to win.
How much did you bet?
$1 million!
What convinced you to bet so much on number 69?
You might see how that's a problem.
That was
That's not to say that the feelings in both
True.
the movie and the show don't initially come from genuine and valid places, but the path those feelings are funneled through determine whether those feelings are constructive or destructive. Squid Game doesn't offer anything more than a reminder that the system is bad. You don't need to give me a realistic solution, but given the premise, it should be something a bit more substantial than shoot everyone. The Matrix is a perfect example. It does the exact same system bad so shoot everyone that Squid Game does.
Holy shit.
But the solution it presents is based on a culmination of the premise. Everyone is in a program, so you need to hack the code. And by the end, the revolution isn't built on ejecting everyone from the system. It's about giving people the choice of whether to accept the system or to leave it. I had originally gone into this with the idea of comparing Squid Game to Snowpiercer, insofar as their respective stories have the absurdity built into their thesis. How can the system possibly work? Is the question you're supposed to be asking about the show, and by extension, about capitalism. I decided against it because Squid Game has a much more interesting dissonance in the way it portrays its criticisms of the system and the people who participate in it. There are people who are still unironically supportive of a guy who shot someone in cold blood on the street because the person they killed was a health insurance CEO. For a show about dismantling the violent systems that are keeping people oppressed, it never actually reckons with the idea of how turning around and using that violence would make people feel in the run-up to actually committing it. So why am I talking about all of this instead of Matt Walsh? Because Matt Walsh is a boring hack racist with no discernible personality beyond his ability to feed your discontent. And that last thing is what's important because discontent is a powerful drug.
I think that conceptually, I don't think he's too far off the mark. I will say, though, that something that's a little bit different than I think in times past is, or maybe it's not different, maybe it's the exact fucking same, is I think conceptually there's not as much distance between us. The distance between us is our perception of what is actually happening in the world. I brought this up with January 6th, that if you really truly believe that all of the politicians that conspired on the Democratic side to steal the election from the rightful winner, Donald Trump, like, you know, not only does an insurrection become understandable, I think it becomes almost your obligation as an American citizen to fight to reassert rule of law, democracy, everything else. When it comes to the Luigi guy, like if you truly believe, which unfortunately I feel like over half of Americans believe this, that health insurance companies basically just exist to push the deny button when they're bored, to watch people die because they're malicious and evil and like to scrape money from poor innocent citizens, and they're just like die. And this guy is like at the top of the die button system, where, you know, every now and then he shows up at the office like, I want to kill some motherfuckers today. Die. And it's like, oh, well, okay, I guess that's really what you think the system is like. I mean, damn, was Luigi, you know, kind of in the right, kind of a base vigilante? Like it feels more like a factual dispute than a high level conceptual one. But
and what do you feel about like people who think abortion is literally just murdering fucking like humans / babies? Do they have like in their mind the moral?
No, that's more of. I think that's more of a conceptual one. I think that's a conceptual one. Like
why?
Because they're arguing over the concept of. That's not necessarily a factual dispute. Mm-hmm. They're arguing over the concept of whether or not aborted babies are human beings that should get protections or not. You know, like. If abortion was pushed, if pro-life was pushed because they are trying to present that the average abortion is like a satanic mother that goes in with a satanic doctor to like laugh and gleefully murder a 9-month pregnant woman or whatever, or the 9-month fetus, then that would be more akin to the you're living in a different factual world, such that the facts maybe could justify, like you could understand how most people would intuitively arrive at this answer. But we don't. There's not like a huge factual separation on abortion. But
nobody actually thinks that like the CEO is up there being evil and holding the fucking button and just being like, no, I won't give that. That seems insane to me.
I know, but I think they do. I know it sounds weird, but I think the average.
But is it far-fetched for you to think like that the average person who's believing in abortion feels like people are doing like an evil and they know that they're doing it?
Well, no, because I can just look at the messaging and nobody really says that as much. Sometimes they'll argue around with like third-term abortions or whatever, but not usually. Like even that guy that I argued with last said that like only 40,000 abortions are even second-term or something like that, I think. But yeah, but you can also, there's like a genuine contention on the abortion thing where you can see that there's like a genuine conceptual difference here. So like that's a good ground to fight on. You don't have to invent a whole other world to get people riled up on both sides. And I think there could be a legitimate like disagreement on that. Like that's a legitimate moral disagreement that two people can argue intelligently on both sides. Yeah,
and you can have an argument. Yeah,
I think you even could about like the healthcare stuff and Luigi. Like there is a very extended argument related to social harm, related to social obligations, potentially that you could have. That might boil down into being able to take violent action against some people who are like owners, large owners of those companies. Maybe like it would involve like if you have a ton with great power comes great responsibility, I guess. If you've been gifted with a bunch of assets and you have the ability to heal people or whatever, and or people are dying, or maybe it would go really, really far down the road. But nobody is truly engaging in that argument. The argument is instead that just 99% of the time an insurance company denies a claim, it's because they're evil and they want to make profits and the person needs to die.
It's just insane to me that people think that, like, that there's somebody at the top who's just like, oh, I'm doing this just to make money and I don't care.
I mean, you can... Obviously, my Twitter things are not representative of all of society, but